But if they were to not reach a verdict at night, accommodations would have to be made for them at a hotel of some sort, and then they would come back here to deliberate again. If you recall, I told them be prepared to bring an overnight bag of some sort. Florida Rule of Criminal Procedure 3.370 is what requires this. However, it does say that it can be waived if the state and the defense agree to that issue of it being waived. From what your attorney tells me, it sounds like the defense and the state are agreeing to waive the requirement that I sequester the jury once they begin deliberations for the guilt phase of this proceeding. Is that your understanding?
That is.
Is that what you want to do?
I do. I don't think any family, they shouldn't be away from their family.
Okay, so you're agreeing to waive the sequestering of the jury during the guilt phase of the trial?
Yes.
Am I required to sequester them for the penalty phase as well?
The court would, obviously, if the defense doesn't waive that as well.
Okay, if we get to that portion of the proceeding, are you in agreement to waiving it for the penalty phase of the trial, or do you wish to talk to your attorneys more about that as well?
Absolutely. We could just waive them. They shouldn't be away from their family.
Okay, and obviously I tell the jury, even if they, this is only if they don't reach a verdict that same night and have to come back the next day, they would be under the same rules that whether or not to watch the news or the media, read the newspapers, or do any outside research. So the same rules apply that they've been under the entire time they've been with us since last Monday. So those rules will still apply while they're deliberating the case if they were to go home and I have a verdict and come back the next day. So you're in agreement with all that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything you want me to inquire about regarding that issue from the defense?
No, sir, Your Honor.
Okay, so the next issue is the transcript for this wire audio. Now, as I sit here, I don't believe I have heard the audio. I've read depositions regarding the audio through the Williams Rule portion of the proceedings we've had litigated in the case, but I myself have not listened to it. And I'm going to go ahead and just for clarity, and so it's complete, I'm going to go ahead and read to you, Mr. Quiles, the jury instruction. I'm going to read to the jury at this portion of the proceeding. It's Florida Standard Instruction 2.6. This is what I would tell the jury when this is being played and they would be handed a transcript. You're about to hear recorded conversations. These recorded conversations are proper evidence, and you may consider them just as any other evidence. You're also being furnished transcripts of the recorded conversations. The recordings are the evidence, and the transcripts are provided to you only as a guide to help you follow as you listen to the recordings. The transcripts are not evidence of what was actually said or who said it. If you notice any difference between what you hear on the recordings and what you read in the transcripts, you must rely on what you hear, not what you read. So essentially, the audio is what's evidence. That's what the jury is to consider. The transcript they are given during the portion of the trial is never taken back to the jury room. It's not evidence, and they won't consider it as such. Indeed, at the conclusion of the audio, the transcript will be taken back from the jury, and they won't have it again throughout the rest of the proceedings. After the recordings being played, there is some case law regarding if there is a dispute as to the accuracy of the instructions. I'm supposed to have a hearing. That case law was put on the record earlier. Your attorneys this morning said that they disputed certain portions of it. I don't know what those portions were. I've not had a full briefing of the issues yet, but your attorneys were going to discuss with you, discuss with the state, and decide what next steps to go from there. But at this portion, your attorneys tell me that you're no longer disputing the accuracy of that transcript, and you are agreeing to provide that transcript to the jury for their consideration when the audio is played and move forward from there. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And I know that was a long prelude.
Yeah.
I was just kind of setting the stage so the transcript had in total what we discussed on this issue without having to refer back to other portions of the transcript. Essentially, you're agreeing to give that transcript to the jury whenever they hear the audio as the state has prepared that transcript.
Correct.
Okay. And you're waiving any disagreement or dispute you have as to the accuracy of that transcript, correct?
Correct.
Obviously, the instruction tells, well, go ahead, Ms. Michelle. You may want to clarify something.
At the
And you're right, and that's probably a better way of saying it. The instruction does say that you're to rely on what you hear, not what you read. And so the transcript's not evidence. The jury is going to rely upon what they hear, and based off argument of your attorneys at closing, if they wish to argue to the jury that there's a different spin on it, different take on it, who's saying what, that's a comment on the evidence, and that's allowed during closing arguments. Essentially, though, the bottom line is that you're agreeing for the jury to have it in their possession, the transcript as prepared by the state during that portion of the wire audio. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
And you've talked to your attorneys about this?
Yes.
They've answered all your questions?
Yes, sir.
Anything else you want me to inquire about?
Judge, if we just made it clear he's not waiving any right to affect the accuracy, just because he answered in the affirmative when you asked that question.
I guess I was talking more about on appeal purposes, but,
You mean as far as you're waiving the right to say that you did not agree with this getting to the jury, the transcript being provided to them?
repeat that?
When you asked him about waiving the right to the inaccuracy, you were specifically talking about him and his agreement to providing this transcript to the jury while they're listening to the audio. He's waiving any challenge to that specifically.
Correct. Yeah, the jury instruction says that that the jury is to rely on what they hear, not what they read. And if the defense is commenting on the audio and what you hear, that's a comment on the evidence, and that is something that is entirely permissible to do in front of a jury during closing argument. My only comment is that he is agreeing for the jury to have in their possession the transcript as prepared by the state. Does that?
Yes, absolutely yes.
Okay. Anything else you want me to inquire about in that regard?
No, Judge.
Mr. Quiles, anything else you want me to, anything you want me to clarify?
No, I think you just did.
Okay. Anything else you want to talk about? Okay. Anything else you guys want me to inquire about while I have them?
No, sir, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay. So anything else you want to handle, stay outside the presence of the jury? Defense?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's bring the jury in, please.
Your Honor, the jury reorders the court.
Members of the jury, welcome back. Hope you had a nice lunch break. We're going to continue with our trial here this afternoon. Oh, I'm sorry. You guys may have a seat. I have a habit of not doing that. We're going to continue with our trial this afternoon, and State, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Gary Lindros.
Mr. Lindros. Yes, sir. Good afternoon to you, sir. Please have a seat. If you need a glass of water, let us know. We'll do our best to accommodate you. If there's an objection made during the course of your testimony, I just ask that you pause, let me rule on the objection, and we'll go from there.
Yes, sir.
That said, State, you may be quiet. You're ready.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Will you state your name for our jury, please?
Gary Charles Lindros, Jr.
Yes, sir. And I
don't think I asked your brother. Will you spell your last name?
Lindr.
In some respect?
Yes, we have different areas of focus for our management, yes.
And who owns Ace Pick-A-Part?
My father, Gary Lindros Sr.
Now, with respect to your position as general manager, can you give our jury an idea of your duties under your umbrella?
Yes, I'm generally in charge of the office staff as well as what we consider the retail end of our business, which is commercial sales to individuals.
Do you have much involvement in overseeing the outside staff?
No, sir, very little at all.
Does that more fall under your brother?
Yes, he takes care of all the outside staff and what I'd call our wholesale end of the business.
Now, Mr. Lindros, will you describe your sort of day-to-day activities that you engage in?
I'm in charge of making sure we're adequately staffed, that our staff has all the tools, be it change as well as computer equipment available to fill their jobs.
All right. Now, we've heard there's 16 or so outside employees working under your brother. How many employees are working in the office?
About a dozen, sir.
All right. And would it have been about a dozen back during December 2018 to January 2000?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Now, were you working, sir, during that latter part of 2018 in the same capacity you are today?
Yes, sir, I was.
You know who Johnathan Quiles is?
Yes, sir, I'm familiar with him.
And who is he to you?
He was a former employee of ours.
All right. You see him in the courtroom today, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
Can you describe an article of clothing and where he's seated, please?
He's wearing a button-down white shirt over to the right of my position.
All right. And Your Honor, may the record reflect he's correctly identified the defendant.
So reflected.
Thank you. Now, when was he hired?
I don't have those dates roughly in front of me. I want to say October of 2018.
All right. And can you give us, from your memory and what you recall, what his duties were, best you can recall as you sit here now?
He had a variety of duties. He was a general handyman. We'd have him fix various pieces of equipment, hoses, things of that nature, do general cleanup work as well, sort of, pitch in wherever we needed to have an odd job done.
All right. But on a daily basis, would you be supervising that or even paying attention to his duties throughout a day?
No, sir. Again, he was outside staff. That would have been my brother Johnathan, who was present.
All right. Was his direct supervisor Larry Carlson as an outside supervisor?
Yes, sir.
And I think your brother spoke of it, but was he out for an extended period of time?
Yes, he had a medical issue, and he was not actually on the premises for, I believe, all of December.
And did that mean your brother took over the daily supervision of the defendant?
Yes, sir.
Did you have any role in that or pitch in or help out with your brother when Mr. Carlson was out?
Not typically, unless Johnathan wasn't present at the facility.
All right. Now, when employees leave for the day, just in general, how are they supposed to do that?
Well, besides we don't hold people to the moment, but there's a generally scheduled lunch time. They're supposed to punch out. We have a time card system, a little old school, and they punch in when they come in, they punch out for lunch, punch back in when they come back, and then punch out to leave.
Was there a time, Mr. Lindros, when the police contacted you either late 2018, early 2019?
Yes, sir. They did contact us. Yes, sir.
And was that for the purpose of being on your premises for potential searches for evidence?
Yes, sir. I believe they searched twice. They had police dogs out searching our facility.
Do you recall a day where a vehicle was sort of lifted off the lot and brought over to another location and searched by police? Were you there that day?
Yes, I was, sir. Yeah, it went pretty late. I think it was 7, 8 o'clock before they had finished that day. Yes, they removed a vehicle. It seemed odd to me because it was a recently arrived vehicle, and I believe this was a few weeks after time in discussion, and so I didn't see how it was relevant, and I mentioned that, but they took the vehicle anyway.
All right. Did you, well, I want to talk to you a little bit about that. Did you have any idea whether a K-9 unit had hit or what they call alerted on that vehicle? Do you have any knowledge of that?
They said that there was some interest about in the vehicle. They didn't give me more detail.
Okay. And I think that evidence technician has already spoken, so with respect to the date, is it your recollection that that was in January 2019?
That seems right, yes, sir.
Was it well after the date that was advised by you to police that the girl had gone missing on December 19th of 2000?
Yes, sir. I believe roughly recall it being several weeks.
All right. Is that why you felt it was unusual for the police to take that particular vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And I think you mentioned something about it recently coming in. Will you explain what you mean by that best you can recall today?
Oh, well, we log every vehicle as it comes in. We assign a unique stock number to it, and we set the yard from front to back, sort of like setting a shelf. And we knew that was a recently put out vehicle from the road that they had said it was in. So it just seemed odd to me that they'd want such a recent vehicle.
Okay. And did you tell the police that?
Yes, I said, are you certain? We just got this in, I'll say within the last week.
Okay,
And
that's where my next question was, specifically from the day they were there searching with K-9, you believe it was recently within a week of them doing the search?
Yes, sir.
Now, I think we covered, brother, just a little bit with you, the dumpster schedule and or pickup. Will you describe your understanding of how often it was picked up at your business?
Typically, it was usually within once a week, but we get charged per the container being filled to remove it. So we will always wait until it's full before we'll call for a pickup. Otherwise, we're charged extra fees.
And is that more fall under your brother's responsibilities?
Yes, that falls under his.
Now, I want to spend the rest of your testimony talking about what you were in charge of. Hopefully our computers will cooperate with us. So I want to first ask you, are you the individual at ACE that's wholly responsible for the camera systems?
Yes, sir.
All right. And did you give to the police all the downloads from December 19, 2018 to December 20, 2018?
Yes, I wasn't familiar with how to pull the records, so I actually gave them the hard drive complete for the technicians to look at.
Okay, and so for purposes of our record, to make sure we're all talking about the same thing, is what you mean by the hard drive mean your entire system?
It's the memory storage device that was in the DVR system.
Okay, and by the memory data that you're talking about, was it your understanding you provided police all the video, any and all the video between December 19, December 20?
Yes, I sent them everything that we had a record of, yes, sir.
Okay, on both of those days?
Yes, sir.
All right. And for purposes of not doing it every time we show you a clip, let me just ask you with respect to all the clips from December 19 and December 20, 2018, have you had a chance to review each and every one of those prior to coming to court today? At some point?
Yes, I've seen several samples of them.
Okay. Did you do that as recently as last night?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you and I sit down and walk through each of those videos ourselves last night?
Yes, we did.
All right. Are they a true and accurate depiction of, one, on the date of December 19, 2018, is that a true and accurate depiction of your facility?
Yes, it is.
The second set of videos we're going to look at, are all of them a true and accurate depiction of December 20, 2018?
Yes, they are.
That the rainy day?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. Let's now talk about what you reviewed most specifically last night prior to coming to court today. Did you see that the clips have all been merged together with respect to the defendant's actions on those 2 days?
Yes, he's the primary subject of the videos.
That's what, so for purposes of not having to ask you with each and every one of those, on the clips that we're about to watch, do they show what you believe to be the defendant on each of those 2 days?
Yes, sir.
In general?
Yes, sir.
All right. And when you downloaded this particular data and these videos, sir, did it come in a format where it was upwards of about 30,000 clips, give or take?
I'm not even sure of the format. I wasn't aware of how to remove it, so I actually provided the whole hardware to the technician.
Okay. Do you recall whether your system had it broken down into 25 to 30-second clips per file? Recall that?
I do not know that, sir.
Okay. So once we put it together and showed it to you, it's still your testimony that it is a fair and accurate depiction of these 2 days?
Yes, sir, it is.
How many cameras, let's start there, how many individual cameras are on your premises that we're about to look at in total?
We have about a dozen outside and about a dozen inside our facility, our offices.
Are the ones we're about to watch only focused on the outside?
Yes.
Is that because that's where the defendant almost exclusively was throughout the work?
Correct, yes. The inside offices was not his general purview.
Now, what was the purpose when these cameras went in, when you and or anyone else in management decided to put the cameras in? What was the purpose or intent of what you were trying to cover on the premises?
To capture theft. Unfortunately, we do occasionally have theft, and while we couldn't necessarily watch it 24 hours a day, we wanted to have some record if someone came into the facility, especially entry points and exit points.
Okay. And was that the large focus of most of the cameras, particularly near the front of the property, the points of entry and exit?
Yes, sir.
All right. And while we're there, will you describe for our jury how, if we were to drive onto your property back in December 2018, is it sort of a one-way entry and one-way exit?
Yes, you have to cross railroad tracks. There's a single way in and out of our facility. We have some other gate openings once you pass the railroad tracks, but that is the only way to get in.
And your brother kind of showed us on a map. Will you just, with your words, just sort of describe where employees park?
Sure. The entire front of our lot borders US 17 Main Street, and the parking runs parallel to that street.
All right. And the parking for employees, parallel meaning it's right next to 17 and or Main Street?
Yes.
Okay. There's nothing in between the two, is that correct?
Railroad tracks.
And that's it?
Yes, sir.
No buildings?
No, some chain link fence, that's all.
Yes, sir. Now, when you turn, this is back in 2018, 2019, when you turn into the facility, do you have to take an immediate left to go park where the employees park if you're an employee?
Yes, or for customers, yes.
That was my next question. Is that also for the public?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. If you turn left or turn right into your business and cross those railroad tracks, what if you went straight? I know the cameras don't go that far back, but what if you went straight in and crossed the railroad tracks and did not turn left to go to parking? Where does that lead?
There's an adjacent lot that we had purchased recently. At the time, we weren't fully utilizing it at this point. We were using it for some storage purposes, but that was about it. Typically, there's a gate that would be closed.
All right.
So you would hit a gate.
If an employee or someone from the public drove straight, would that be something that would not be expected by you?
Yes, that would be unexpected.
Would that be more unexpected if you saw an employee do that knowing parking was to the left?
If anyone did it, we would see it. We have large windows inside our offices, which provide us a very good view of our facility, and we would, even without cameras over there, because there were none set up for that new land that we had acquired, you can still see very clearly.
Now, your brother described the defendant's duties and where he generally is throughout a particular day. What about you? Do you have enough knowledge to even tell us where he would be at a particular given time on a normal random day?
I wouldn't be able to say that. He had a variety of jobs that we assigned to him, so he could be in a variety of places.
With respect to these video cameras, the views that we're about to watch, the ones that show the entry and exit to the front of the facility where people enter and exit via cars, does that show where they would turn and go down into the parking area? Partially.
Partially, yes.
When we see some of these video clips, do you recall what the defendant was driving at that time period when he worked for you?
Yes, I was some type of maroon minivan, I believe a Chrysler.
Now, in terms of just identifying him as we go through these, on the second day, December 20th, 2018, is the defendant seen in the videos that we're about to watch in an all sort of bright yellow rain suit?
Yes, sir.
And most of the clips.
Yes, sir, he is.
Is there anyone else dressed like that we see at all on that given day?
No, he's distinctive.
Did that make him easier for us to go through and identify him on?
Yes, sir.
Now, with respect, I know you said the majority of these cameras are meant to for theft and look at points of entry and exit. With respect to what they don't capture, will you give our jury an idea of what areas, if any, on your premises the cameras don't capture?
Well, it's a 30-acre facility. We're not able to capture every square foot. The majority of our property are cars laid out for customers to take parts off of. We don't need to individually police each vehicle out in our facility. So that's almost half of the facility is really just a parking lot.
We've seen a map and we've seen you sit on Main Street in 17. The further you get away from 17, is that where you have less camera use? Would you say that?
Yes, our front area where our offices are and the entry points are where the cameras are focused. Once you depart that area, the camera density drops significantly.
Okay. And with respect to closing up in the evening and coming back the next morning, do you actually sit down each morning and kind of look through all 11 cameras throughout the night, or is it just kind of when something happens?
Yeah, purely incident-based. If we notice something askew or something isn't right, then we'll go back and look at it. But otherwise, it's more of a historical record. It's not a active security item being watched.
All right. So if the defendant or anyone either was milling around outside your premises or even remaining on your premises or came back to your premises overnight, would you have any reason to see that on video had nothing happened that caused you to look at the videos the next morning?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Of course. If anyone was just hanging around your property the night prior and no incident occurred, no theft, no break-in, no incident, would you catch that the next morning when you came in, since you don't look at those videos on a daily basis unless there's an incident?
Probably not.
Now, when you look at these camera angles, do you have like the camera numbers memorized, or is it just better for you to tell us what we're looking at when we see what we see from each particular?
Yeah, no, I don't have camera numbers memorized, sir.
It's not like I can say to you, Mr. Lindros, where does camera 4 generally aim at?
No, I wouldn't be able to tell you off the top of my head.
Now, with respect to the operation of these cameras and videos, was there any issues that you had during the time period of late December 2018 to January 2019?
Not to my knowledge.
Sir, I'm now going to walk through State's Exhibit for our record. It's State's Exhibit 31. It is a merged document. So I'm going to first look at December 19th, 2018. We'll look at only those dates first, and then we'll go on to the second date thereafter.
We asked for the jury instruction on video. What are we talking about? Related to the video?
Sure. Members of the jury, you're about to view a video recording. The court instructs you that the recording has been edited to eliminate irrelevant portions that would not add to your understanding of the case. The fact that the recording has been edited should not concern you in any way. It must not impact the way you view and consider this evidence. Yes, sir. Mr. Skinner, can you unpublish
Yes,
while
sir.
you're searching for it?
Yes, sir. Sir, while she's pulling that PowerPoint, we're going to do some photos first before we do the videos. I want to talk a little bit about time before we get to the videos too. As you've reviewed this, did you determine that on some of the angles, it's clear that the time is either 4 or 5 hours off?
Yes, sir, it is several hours off. Unfortunately, the system does not keep good system time, so it would have an occasion, especially with daylight savings time, to impact it to change, yes.
Okay, so if it says, when we do the videos, if it says, for example, 1 p.m., would you agree that would be 4 hours later than what the actual time was now that you've reviewed them, taking it back to 9?
Yes, sir, when I reviewed it, I could see us opening our facility, and I know within a few minutes of when that would be, so yes.
Was that how you were able to determine that?
Yes, sir.
Were you able to determine that because you saw during the morning hour upon employee arrival and the departure hour upon employee departure, you know that's what time it was? Is that correct?
Yes, sir, within about 15 minutes, we typically open or close every day, so.
All right. And when you reviewed these clips, did you see that we kept them on the time that your system reflect? You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
So do you agree, in every single one of these, it is either exactly 4 hours or 5 hours ahead? Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. I now want to show you what has been marked as States Exhibit 20, just a couple of photographs. And now we're looking at 20A. Do we see the train tracks where you enter on the right of this photograph?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is that the one-way in and the one-way out of ACE?
Yes, sir.
All right. Can you also see your office in this photograph?
No, sir. The yellow building to the right of that picture is our old offices. Our current offices, the ones we were in at that time, are actually further back.
All right. Now I want to show you what's been marked as States 20, E as in boy. What do we see there?
Yes, there you can see both the old offices and the current offices.
All right. Is that both of the yellow buildings?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And on the left-hand side, is that where the employees and or public generally park?
Yes, sir.
So would you, if you can, take your finger, all you have to do is touch the screen, sir, and circle where an employee would walk in the morning and leave in the afternoon. All right, is that a gate there?
Yes, sir.
Now, do you see the green truck departing in 20B?
Yes, sir.
What area is he coming from?
He's coming from that additionally purchased lot that we purchased. It wasn't in use in 18, however, for anything but dead storage, so there would not have been trucks coming in and out.
Back in 2018, 2019, specifically late December 2018, what was there where that truck was?
A gate.
All right. Now I want to show you what's been marked as States 20C. What do we see there, sir?
That's a pole barn towards the back of our facility, and we use it for various maintenance needs.
All right. Would that be an area where you would expect the defendant to work?
Yes, sir.
And to orient us in States 20C, if you went to the right and crossed the road, is that about where the entrance to your business is?
Yes, sir.
And is that what we see in 20D? Is that closer to the main entrance there?
Yes, sir.
All right, and the far right of 20D, we see what looks like an overpass. What road is that?
That's an off-ramp for Interstate 95.
And 20E?
Is Main Street.
All right, and again, showing the tail end of the employee parking. Is that where that is?
That is part of the employee parking, yes. Yes, the whole front of the facility is a parking area.
I'll now show you what's been marked as 20G. Is this the area where employees would enter and exit your facility?
Slightly to the left, but yes, there's walkways on either side of the building. They would walk in the exit for employees.
Okay, so we see a far left blue barrel with the word ACE on it.
Just past that, yes, sir.
just off the photograph, is that where employees would enter?
Yes, sir.
And the right side, on the right side of this building, is that generally where the public enters?
Yes, sir, it is.
And 20H, what is that, sir?
Where that do not enter sign is where the employees would enter the facility.
Okay. 20I, what is that?
That's an aerial view of pretty much our entire parking area.
And how about 20L?
That's the the crossing of the tracks to get into our facility, railroad tracks, and part of the parking lot.
So when employees turn in and they cross the railroad tracks, you indicated they would turn almost immediately left to go to parking, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Back in December 2018, if you went straight, could you go, if you followed that dirt area straight, just past the telephone pole, and then turn left where there appears to be an open gate heading to the car lot? Was that open?
No, sir. The gate was solid to the best of my recollection back then. We weren't using it to go through the different properties at that time.
So if, for example, the defendant drove through that gate either on 2019, December 19 or December 20th, that is not something you would expect him to do?
No, sir.
20M, what is that?
That's the gate facility if you went straight over the tracks and drove in.
How about 20O, what is this, sir?
Just one moment.
I can back it up if you will.
Those are containers that we put aluminum wheels into, and they usually go out. I believe my brother's handles it, but to the best of my knowledge, they usually go out every 2 weeks.
Okay. And 20P, what is that?
That is just when you go into the gates. That's that area, that lot to the right where if you had just driven in.
Okay. And do we see a large piece of machinery lifting a car in this photograph? It's orange.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we have an excavator. Yes.
You had our videos, Stacy. There. So now I want to direct your attention to the videos that we put together for you to view. Let's take these one by one. I first want to direct your attention to December 19, 2018. Do we see in this first video, once we play it, I want to ask you, the question will be, is this upon when the defendant arrives for the day on December 19 of 2018? Yeah. I'm starting to play this at the 47th second. Tell us what we see around the exact 1 minute mark, sir. Is this how employees would typically pull in and turn left?
Yes, sir.
Who do we see turning in now?
I guess we're referring to Mr. Quiles, his minivan.
Right. Is that the second red, the one we see right?
Yes, the actual minivan, not the pickup truck. Yes, sir.
So for our record, that's at the 1 minute and 16 minute mark. Is that what you know to be the defendant's vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you know to be a normal turn-in to the employee parking lot?
Yes, sir. Yeah, several employees pulling in that when my brother opened the gate.
I now want to take you to these, I'll just start at the 5 minute and 56 second mark. This is for the tape purpose, not the time purpose, and play this. Around 6:09, tell us what we see at 6:09, sir.
Mr. Quiles walking in through the parking lot.
All right. And again, this is on December 19th, 2018. After you reviewed the videotape, you agree with that, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
And was he texting in that photograph?
I couldn't make out what he was doing, sir.
Fair enough. Now I'm going to go to the 7-minute and about 35-second mark. Tell us what we see around the 7:50 mark. First of all, do you see his vehicle in the middle of this video?
Yes, I do,
Is
sir.
that the defendant getting in it?
Yes.
And do we see the defendant then get into the red minivan and pull out, turning left to us, but right to him since he's backed in? Do you agree with that's what we're about to see, sir?
Yes, he is leaving his parking spot.
All right, and as you can see here, it's daylight. You agree with that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Do we see that again at the top right?
Yes, we do.
That's just from a different camera angle?
Yes, it is.
And sir, in your review of this, do you agree this was around the 11:15 a.m. hour on December 19, 2018?
I don't.
That minus the 4 hours that we calculated.
I don't see any time coding, but if it was time coded, it was off about 4 hours.
Okay. Watch that again. You also agree, sir, this is daylight hours, correct, sir?
Yes, sir, it is.
And when it shifts camera angles from that camera angle when he left to the next camera angle that should come up any second, does that mean they're obviously video recording at the same time? Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir, yes.
Now you see where it says 15:17 right there?
Yes, sir.
Did you see that just then? That's the time from your system, military time. Do you agree that that is 3:17?
Yes.
And if you minus the 4 hours, that puts it at 11:17 a.m. Do you agree with that now?
Yes, sir.
And you agree that to be the accurate time? You agree with that?
It's generally correct. It could be off by a few minutes, I'm not sure, but typically it's close, yes.
Fair enough. Just to make sure we saw, 15:17, military time is 3:17, minus 4 hours, give or take a few minutes, puts it at about 11:17 a.m. on December 19th, correct?
Yes, sir.
See that? All right. What do we see at 11:17 a.m.? What do we see right now on the video?
He's leaving the property in his vehicle, or his vehicle is leaving.
Does he turn right out of the premises? Just as you saw him there?
He crossed the tracks. I'm not sure which way he turned, sir.
Okay. Once you cross the tracks, is it true you're leaving the premises?
Yes, sir.
And do we note, sir, at 11:17 a.m. that he signed out on his timesheet? Have you had a chance to look?
I've seen the time card. No, he did not punch out as he's supposed to.
You're certain that's the defendant leaving at 11:17 a.m. on December 19th? Agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm going to fast forward to for purposes of the record, I'm starting the tape of the court exhibit at 9:05 as for minute and second. I'm going to let it run about 20 seconds. Sir, when we get to about the 9:25 mark, tell us what you see in the far portion back of the employee parking lot. Had a little hiccup. What do we see now, sir?
I see Mr. Quiles, he was headed southbound on Main Street and turned into our facility.
All right, and I also noticed for two things. I'll try to pause it. When he turns in, does the clock on your device say 16:30?
Yes, sir.
Is that military time 4:30 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
Does that mean minus 4 hours, it's 12:30 p.m. again, give or take a minute or two?
Yes.
So the defendant left at 11:15 a.m., or I'll correct that, 11:17, give or take, a.m. on December 19, 2018, and then he returned at 12:30 p.m. on December 19, 2018.
Yes, sir.
You're certain that's his vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And he's pulling in from off the premises. Do you agree with that, sir?
Yes, sir.
And your cameras reflected him completely gone from the premises during that time period, correct?
Yes.
For approximately 43 minutes, he was gone. You agree with that, sir? Give or take, if my math's right. I'm sorry, 11:17 to 12:30. That would be about 50.
An hour and 15 minutes.
Yes, hour 15. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes, sir.
stand corrected. You're right. That's right. 11:17 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. An hour and 13 minutes he was gone. And you agree with that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you have any recollection as you sit here now, you giving him any kind of order to leave for that kind of period of time during the middle of the day on December 19, 2018?
It's been several years, but I do not recall it.
All right, I will now fast forward to the next clip, sir. It's going to be at the 1320 mark on the court exhibit. Our record, tell us what we see. I'll go ahead and start it at about 13 minutes. I'm going to try to take a look again, sir, at the one that hiccups, but it looks. Same one. It's having a technical difficulty, Judge, just give us one. Okay. All right, now fast forwarding, sir, to, one moment, Your Honor. Oh, that's right, it keeps playing. Sir, once the defendant turned in this time, where did he drive to? Did you see that?
No, sir, I didn't.
Right now. Which way is he going?
I mean, he pulls into our facility. I know as people make that turn, there is a blind spot right there, so I'm not sure if he's just parked slightly out of camera sight or if the gate was open and he went through that area. I can't ascertain.
Yes, sir. But if he went straight, would he be going into that area that is not for employee parking?
Yes, sir, that he would, if that's what happened, yes.
We'll let it run a minute because I'm going to ask you if you see him come back, park in the employee parking area. Again, this is the 12:30 p.m. hour. So do you agree, sir, it's now been running for about a minute and 15 seconds since he's turned in? Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
And he still hasn't come to the employee parking lot. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Is that another employee, just random cars coming and going into your parking lot?
Yes, we see hundreds of customers a day in and out, so.
And does it appear each and every time either the public or employees, they pull into the employee parking lot without going straight, as you testified?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree now that since we've lost the side of the defendant on this particular camera, it's been about 2 minutes since he turned in and has not gone to the employee parking lot?
Yes, sir.
And while we're waiting for him to return, in that area over to the right where they're not supposed to be, do you have any mounted camera angles for that particular lot on the side over there at that time?
Nothing focused, no, sir. I think one of the things where you showed there's another camera angle, you might have caught something, but it definitely wasn't focused in that area.
All right. Do you agree now, we're at about 2.5 minutes since he's turned in and has remained off of this camera somewhere on your lot? Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
And for our record, the court exhibit is running up to the 13th minute. Focus your attention, sir, when you get to 13 minutes and 20 seconds. Tell us what we see about that time period. About 3.5 minutes after he turned into your business. Just to make sure we catch that time, I want to make sure that our record is clear. I'll read it into the record. Make sure you agree with it, sir. At the 13, looks like almost 20-second mark, the time of you see the time that just popped up?
Yes, sir.
16:33. Would that be the time that was reflected on your surveillance system?
Yes, sir.
Meaning it was 4:33?
Yes, sir.
Minus 4 hours would now be 12:33. Do you agree with that?
That's correct.
Do you agree that now he's been on your premises back at your facility for almost 3 minutes and a half since he's turned in? Agree with that?
For about 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes, fair enough. Sir, what do we see at the 13-minute and 31-second mark on the court exhibit? What do we see there?
His vehicle pulling into the parking area.
Is that where he should have parked when he first drove in?
Yes, yeah, that's where they typically park. We don't have assigned parking spaces, but that would be typical that he'd pull in and go approximately halfway through our facility before he parked.
Sir. I want to fast forward us to just a couple more highlights. Go to 19 minutes and play for you a few seconds there. Got to start it right at the 19-minute mark of the court exhibit. While we're there, what is this that we're looking at? I'll pause it a second.
This is our checkout area. This is where customers come up to pay for purchases.
Okay. So generally speaking, is the back of this camera, would that be back toward the employee parking lot, or the parking lot?
No, that's behind our offices, and that would look out into the larger property away from the parking.
Okay. Around I think it's 1908. Who do we see walking up here at 1908, sir?
Mr. Quiles, I can identify him. He was one of the few people that had that external microphone on the walkie-talkies that we used at the time.
Is this again where the employees would enter?
Yes, that's that do not enter, where that do not enter sign was. They walk up that way for employees.
Okay. And is that him there?
Yes, sir, it is.
What's in his right hand, sir?
It looks like a roll of tape.
Looks like it's red in color. That's right to you.
I can't be certain, but that's possible.
Is that the office where he's just coming out of?
Yes, it is.
All right, for our record, we're at 19 minutes and 40 seconds. Did we just see him leave the office at 19 minutes and 53 seconds?
Yes, sir.
And do we see him walking away now from the office?
Yes, sir.
Duct tape in his left hand appears to be.
Yeah, a roll of probably tape, yes, sir.
Sir. And where's he headed? What direction is he going now?
He's going towards the parking lot.
And while you're there, and you just said that, should he be in the parking lot during a working day, other than either running an errand or leaving for lunch?
As a rule, no, but not exclusively. He could have been picking up waste baskets that blow aside or were full, or some other small repair out there. So it's not outside of his job description to be in the parking lot during working hours.
Okay. Chairman, let it continue to play. For our record, we're at 20 minutes and 22 seconds of the court exhibit. Just keep an eye on the monitor for us. What's that pulling in, sir?
Tow truck, sir?
Is that like a car on a flatbed?
Yes, sir.
Now, who do we see on the left-hand side of this duo that's walking?
Mr. Quiles.
And again, for our record, is that the employee parking area?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's where you enter, come over the tracks into our facility.
And is this, again, the area where employees enter and exit on the left-hand side?
On the right-hand side, yes, sir.
I mean, on the right-hand side, yes, sir. Do you see the same two individuals walking the best you can? I know that was a little blurry. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
Is that the tow truck that was just pulling in, pulling the car?
Yes, sir.
Again, we see the same two individuals walking, one being the defendant.
Yes, sir.
In what direction are they headed in now? And for our record, we're at the 2250.
They're walking into our facility towards that pole barn that you had shown earlier, towards that direction. So I guess it would be south on the property.
we see the same two individuals now coming into a different camera view at 23:30 on the court exhibit.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Quiles on the right, as you can tell.
Yes, sir.
And where are they headed in this video?
Looks where we, by a pile where we had scrap tires.
And where are they now? On the far left. Can you tell us what that is? As you can tell, that's been a long time.
Not off the top of my head. If I had to guess, I would assume it's one of those bins that we put aluminum wheels into.
For our record, we're just passing the 25-minute mark on the court exhibit. Are they still in the same area?
Yes, sir. Mr. Quiles walking back, sir, toward, it appears to be the office, maybe? Yes, sir. Or towards that large opening, yes.
All right. And then on that particular day, just going all the way to the end, save us all some time, let me go to approximately the 32-minute mark. You just kind of finish the day for us. Tell us what's going on. Just for the record, I'm starting at 31 minutes and 37 seconds.
The parking lot looks empty. I see lights on vehicles, so I believe we're closing up for the day, is what it appears.
Yes, sir. Is that the defendant's vehicle leaving for the day?
Yes, sir.
Is that 22:06, which military time would be 10:06? Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
The minus 4 hours would make it
6:06, which would be our closing time, yes.
06. Yes, sir. Is that how one would normally leave, again, back out to 17 or Main Street?
It's the only way in and out, so yes, sir.
Yeah. And then lastly, sir, we'll go to the next day, the rainy day. Do you recall December 20, 2018 being a rainy day?
That's me at the gate, yes, sir.
Right, and let me back up that time just to make sure we kind of show when you get there. So your system says 12:27. You agree with that when you're unlocking the gate?
Yes, sir.
And 12:27 minus the 4 hours would be about 8:27 on that day?
Yes, sir.
Or do you think this is a 5-hour?
I believe it's 5. I usually opened up at 8 for the staff, so that would make sense that it would be 5.
Do you believe the second day is approximately 5 hours short of the actual time?
Yes.
And just for our record, you see that folks have umbrellas and the roads appear and the parking lot appears to be very wet.
Yes.
Okay. At the 57-second mark, direct your attention to your monitor and tell us who arrives. again, as you told us what hour it is, but at the 57-second mark of the court exhibit. Again, this is about 7:44 a.m. Who just pulled in?
Yeah, Mr. Quiles in his minivan.
All right. When he pulled in, does he park in the normal parking lot? The normal employee parking lot?
I don't see from the video, but it appears he was headed in that direction, yes. Okay, there you go.
Do you see that he had pulled into the parking space close to the office at the 1 minute and that his vehicle that just drove by?
Yes.
At the 1 minute and 20 second mark. You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
And do you agree that at the 2 minute and about 56-second mark, I'll fast forward for us, that we see the defendant walking up in a rain suit? That the defendant right there?
I can't make that out.
That's great. Let it run to about the 3 minute and 18-second mark. Can you tell if that's him coming out?
I went by too fast. Would you be able to move it back?
Yeah, and let me ask you this way. I know you've seen all these. Is the defendant only one that appears to be wearing a full body rain suit on that day? Does that help you?
Yeah, typically, yes, yeah, he was, very well uniformed, yes.
I'll fast forward to 1812. Ask you what we see, and right at the 1812 mark. Again, is this the office on the left?
Yes, sir.
That appear to be the defendant?
Yes, that is Mr. Quiles.
Is that him coming, for our record, is that him coming into the office?
Yes, sir.
Is that him walking out?
Yes, sir.
Now, we noticed when he walked out, he had something in his hand. Ask your brother about it. Can you tell us what he could retrieve from inside the office and walk out with?
A few things. We provide company, high-vis company T-shirts to employees. If they're stained, ripped, or in this case, wet, we might provided them. We carry a limited amount of additional rain gear in case an employee needs some that doesn't have any. And so it could be those items.
All right. Would that be unusual, or is that something?
No, not for a rain event day, no.
Now, the fact that he's carrying what appears to be something like you're describing, and he's already in a rain suit, would that be questioned by your staff, management, anyone that's handing that to him?
Hey, yes, they would have. The answer could be as simple as, oh, employee X needed a raincoat, he didn't have one.
Thank you, sir. Now, fast forwarding to the, get us way ahead here, 3700 mark, 37-minute mark. All right, in this angle at the 37-minute mark, what is this area, sir?
That's our customer checkout area.
All right, is that a big tractor we see moving up at the top of the screen?
Yes, sir, yes, we have several of them, yes.
And we'll direct your attention to the screen closely at the 37:35 mark. I want to ask you what you see at 37:35, which is about 10 seconds. What do we see there, sir?
One of our loaders moving a vehicle.
And having watched all the videos, I know we haven't seen like one specific one yet, but if the person driving this is in the all yellow rain suit, that would be the defendant, based on your testimony, he was the only one wearing that day?
Well, he walked out with a raincoat, so I'm not certain, but he was one of the few, yes.
Yeah. This particular car that's being taken, is it normal to be driving it through the employee lot like this?
At the time that this was occurring, that other area was a storage area where we were storing cars, but they would need to move over to the other section of our facility to be processed and put out into the facility. So it's not impossible that it was a normal flow of business.
Okay. And we saw this vehicle carrying the car didn't come off Main Street, right?
No, sir, it didn't come over
Where
the
would it
tracks.
be coming from?
The only place I could foresee would be the storage area, to the right of our facility there.
Yes, sir. Now I want to keep playing, take us up to 3940. Tell us what we see in 3940, sir. Be about 10 seconds. And while we're getting there, what's that big blue container on the left there? No.
We have a variety of, I believe that's one of our car crushers. That's not a container.
Is this the tractor that we saw that was coming from the employee parking lot carrying that car?
Can you move it back a second?
Yes, sir. Right there.
Yes, it appears to be the same Honda Accord, yes.
Right. And we'll direct your attention to the 40-minute and 12-second mark. Tell us what you see around then, which should be about 10 more seconds. See that same tractor leaving?
Yes,
See the person driving it in an all-yellow rain suit?
yes.
And then at 40:45, well, let me ask you now what we see at 40:20. Is that the same tractor, what appears to be?
It appears to be, yes, sir.
Right. And at 40:45, tell us what we see next. It's about 10 seconds.
It looks like he's taking off the car forks and probably putting on a bucket. That's the only other attachment for that vehicle.
Is that what he just did? Is that the front end, what you call the bucket?
Yes, sir.
See the rain suit in that video, sir?
Yes, I do, sir.
Here to be Mr. Quiles.
Yes, it does.
Continue to let that run, sir, to 41:33. And we're about 20 seconds short of that. I'll just let it run. We see that same vehicle in the top right-hand corner.
Yes, sir.
And is it driving again back toward, through the employee public parking lot, back toward the area that is, I guess you're calling it a storage facility area at that time?
Yes, sir.
And at 42:08, which is in about 15 seconds, tell us what we see then, sir. Is that the same vehicle
Yes, sir.
headed toward that storage area?
Yes, sir.
And again, that area is one you agree, sir, is not covered by cameras on your premises, correct?
Correct. We had just recently acquired it, and we hadn't reapportioned cameras yet.
Did other employees, did that get out? Did your employees know that? Or is it to your knowledge? Ever have an issue with that?
No, to my knowledge, no employee has commented on camera coverage or anything of that nature.
All right. Directing your attention to the monitor at 4235. What do we see at 4235, which should be right now? You see that same vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to 4409 for our record. I think everybody sees the path. At 44, I'll start it right at 44. Okay. What do we see when we get to 4409? Should be about 5 seconds. See the same vehicle, sir, just drive through the screen?
Yes, sir.
Right. Oh, yeah. Sir, to the far right, underneath the red car, can you kind of give us an indication of what that is?
The yellow racks that we drain vehicles on?
Yes, sir?
Yeah, they're basically constructed out of steel I-beams, and they're welded together, and we have catch pans to drain out fluids.
You see the top part of those cars, and you see the top part of the tractor still moving over there?
Yes,
Just came to a stop. Is that the same vehicle we've been kind of following the last few clips?
yes.
Where's the 40-yard container with respect to that last clip?
It should be in the general vicinity behind there.
And you agree that's out of the view of this particular camera series, the ones we've seen, correct?
Yeah, it's blocked by the cars on the racks, yes, sir.
Now I'm going to jump ahead to the 49th minute. And we're at, right now, I just started it for the record at 48 minutes, 50 seconds. And in about 10 seconds, tell us what we see at the 49th minute. Is this the area where the public generally comes up?
Yes, yes, it is.
And on the left, where the arrow is that kind of directing customers from the parking lot to your office there to come to these windows?
Yeah, you can't see it, but that's a whole chain link fence, so yes.
Is that kind of a pathway that leads all the way through there?
It leads right into this large open area at the foreground.
All right. Look out in the parking lot now. Back at about 10 seconds. What's pulling in right there, that big vehicle? What is that?
I believe that's the switch out for the garbage dumpster.
Yes, sir. And at the time, was that All American, the company that was coming to switch out the 40-yard container dumpster?
Yes, yeah, they've been sold a few times, but I believe it was that name at the time.
And is it pulling in as it normally should, going through the employee parking lot?
That was the only way to go in. So that's, yeah, as I said, that other area that you drive straight through was just storage. There was nothing active other than some vehicles being stored there. So yeah, they would have to come in.
Let this run for about 45 seconds, all the way up to about 50-minute and 15-second mark. And I think that almost draws to a close, but I want to tell us what we see at the 50-minute mark and 15 seconds. Is that the same vehicle coming in to switch out the 40-yard dumpster?
Yes, sir. Yeah, you can see the logo on the side of the dumpster.
Heard a lot of testimony about it. Is that the same vehicle that either you or your brother, more likely your brother, would have to call and get switched out on a weekly basis?
Yeah, as needed. Yes, sir.
Now, for our record, we're at the 50-minute and 15-second mark. What's it doing there?
It stopped. Typically, we keep the container in the same spot all the time. They don't always send regular drivers, so sometimes we do have to direct the tow truck not tow truck, but truck driver to where the dumpster is.
All right. Now, at 50 minutes and 21 seconds, I've frozen this. Is that the same tractor-type vehicle that the defendant has been driving that we've been following in these clips on that day?
I can't make out the number on it, and it looks like it has forks on it now, so he would have switched out the bucket, so I'm not certain.
All right, let's keep watching. Do you agree that somebody just got out of that truck and kind of moving pretty quickly toward the All-American vehicle?
Yes.
Want to watch it one more time? And my question will be, when you see the person get out of that tractor-type vehicle, does it appear to be the defendant? See the person now, sir?
Yes, it appears so. He has a hard hat on. Mr. Quiles was one of the employees who wore the hard hats without much complaint, especially even in a vehicle, he would have his security gear on.
All right. Did you see him approach the red vehicle and appear to go toward it and get right back into his vehicle and has left again? Do we see that?
Yes.
And do you see the red All-American truck following it now as it's working its way toward where the defendant just drove off to? Showing you a different angle now.
Yeah, I see.
Might be the same. We're now at the 51-minute and 10-second mark. You see him jump out?
Yes.
Might be a little different angle, a little bit closer maybe. For our record, we're at 51 minutes and 40 seconds on the court exhibit. Do we see that a little better now, sir?
Yes, sir, it does appear to be Mr. Quiles.
Sir, going straight to the All-American truck. You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
And then within about 10, 12 seconds, he gets back in his tractor. Would you confirm for the record if that's what you see when you see it? See the defendant getting back in his tractor?
Yes, sir.
And the defendant appears to be driving now back towards the interior of your facility?
Yes, sir.
That going in the direction of where the 40-yard dumpster is?
Yes.
Do we see the All-American truck now sort of wedging his way back and forth, headed toward the dumpster? We'll let it run a little bit so you can see that. Is that an employee of yours?
Yes, sir.
For the record, we're at the 53-minute and 4-second mark. Is the employee, as well as the defendant, sort of guiding this All-American truck back toward the dumpster?
Yes, but that's not an uncommon procedure. We have multiple trucks that come in to remove stuff, and sometimes they are first-time people, or they don't know where what they're picking up is located. So it's not uncommon for us to give a general direction.
Right. Again, is that the same vehicle the defendant's been driving?
Yes, sir.
Is he now headed in the direction back towards the 40-yard dumpster?
Yes, sir.
Right. And when you see it, just announce for the record when you see the All-American vehicle coming behind him.
Yeah, that's right there. Yes, sir.
Is he following the defendant back there?
Yes, but that's the only way to get back there, so it's a sole.
Sir. And now at the 54-minute mark, do we see the defendant driving from the back of that area?
Yes,
Do we see in the far right-hand corner the All-American vehicle backing up to the dumpster,
yes, sir.
which is now just off-site?
Yes, yeah, but that is the general location, yes, sir.
And let this run for about 45 more seconds, and then we have maybe a clip or two left. So, one moment. Do we see the tractor now going back over to that area that you say was for storage for cars and whatnot?
Yes, sir.
Is that a little closer?
Yes.
Is that now the, appears to be the All-American Waste vehicle?
Yes, yeah, they'll dump the empty container and take the full container.
And again, this is where the 40-yard dumpster would be located?
Yes, yeah, usually they'll drop the empty one adjacent to it and then take the full.
And for the record, that is something you can't see with these camera angles and is further blocked by what you call the racks, the yellow.
Yeah, this is obviously a tight, close picture. I thought the scope of the camera was wider than this, but.
But you agree this is.
Oh, this is our facility, yes, sir. And
This is your camera system.
yes, it is.
We see kind of that the truck has dropped the empty one. Is that true back there, sir?
Yes.
Now, we get to 5850, show you. This is the 58, for our record, 58 minutes and 40 seconds. I'm starting to let it play. Around 58:50, describe for us what you see, sir. What is that right there?
That's the truck, the garbage truck leaving.
Is it now leaving with the one that was full to take it to the landfill?
Yes.
Again, now at 59 minutes and 18 seconds, do we see it leaving now?
Yes, sir.
Is it full with your waste that would be collected on about a weekly basis?
Yes, yeah, that's typically, it's trash we pull out of vehicles, you know, old things left in it.
And let's get to the end here. What do we see? Let's start playing it at the 1 hour, 8 minute mark in about 45, 50 seconds. Let it run for about 20 seconds. And tell us what you see at that time. You see the vehicle is leaving and the from the employee parking lot?
Yes, it appears to be Mr. Quiles leaving.
Yes, sir. And the time that was just reflected, just to put this in, make sure a jury understands, I'm going to call out exactly what it says at the 109 and about 10-second mark. The defendant departs on December 20, 2018. See his vehicle leaving now?
Yes.
And for our record, it says 1945, which you agree would be approximately 7:45 on your system.
Yes, sir.
Minus the 4 hours would be around 3:45, but on that day you thought it was 5 hours, it was 2:45?
Yes, and that matches his time card.
Sir? Now, I'm going to let it run, starting now at 109 and 15 seconds. Where does he go?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'm saying, where did he go on the video?
Let me rule the objection.
Yes, sir.
Objection sustained based off the previous question. We ask you to rephrase it however you wish.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Mr. Lindros, when the defendant drives to the exit, does he take a right where he normally should to leave the facility?
No.
For the record, that was approximately 109 and about 20 seconds. Do you agree with that, Mr. Lindros, on the court exhibit?
Yes, sir.
Do you see him leaving now?
Yes, sir.
A moment, Your Honor. Mr. Lindros, to wrap up, so every one of those clips we just looked at, you agree, was the defendant on December 19 and December 20, 2018?
Yes, sir.
Appears to be to you.
Yes, sir.
And do you agree, despite the area to the right that was typically off limits, that we see the defendant headed in the direction of that in multiple vehicles, including his own, shortly before he left?
Yes, sir.
And again, for purposes of the time period at that time, what, if anything, would he have to do over in that area that's off camera that you can recall now?
The only thing I could possibly think is he was verifying that the gate was secured, closed, or locked is a possible reason.
Would you agree that he wouldn't be checking whether a gate is locked all day long, back and forth? Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor?
Ms. Michelle, is it, given the time, I'll leave it up to you. Do you want me to take a break now for the jury? I mean, well, you know how long your process is. I don't want to mess up your flow.
I've got a lot, so
Okay.
that would be fair.
As the jury, it's 3:35, but we'll come back at 4 o'clock. That'll be our last break of the day. We'll get an idea of how long we'll be here this afternoon at that point. Please remember, don't discuss the case among yourselves or each other. Don't do any independent research. Leave your notepads on your chairs, and we'll see you then.
Judge, would I be able to use the restroom?
Yeah, I'm gonna, excuse me. Okay. Yeah, I got you. Ooh, Mr. Gray, you dropped one. All right, so the jury's outside our presence. I still have counsel of the State Defense, Quiles present. Mr. Lindros, yes, you may step out. We'll have you back in your chair when the jury comes back. Okay. Thank you, sir. All right, so now the jury and the witness are outside our presence. I still have counsel state defense and Mr. Quiles present. Anything we need to take up outside the jury's presence first from the state
No, sir.
defense?
No, Your Honor.
At some point, we need to figure out the timeline for the rest of the trial. I have an idea of what I think is going to occur the rest of the week. It may differ from what you guys have in mind. I think it's inevitable that we're going into next week. You guys may disagree with me. That's just my take on it. And I say that despite you guys being as efficient and tremendous and as responsible as possibly could be as trials in a case of this nature. So that's not me in anything. That's just, I think, just the nature of the beast at this point.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
I was just saying, I think it's inevitable we're going into next week. I'm saying this now. I may be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be wrong. Given what we still have left, I don't know how closings would start Wednesday morning.
Yeah, I do agree with the court, and again, I don't know what the defense is putting on. They've indicated maybe a couple witnesses, but assuming we have 3 or 4, what we think are short custodian-type witnesses this afternoon left, plus FDLE, DNA, if we could get that on.
I don't know how that's possible. If I come back at 4 o'clock, if they have a lengthy cross, let's say hers is 30 minutes, that's 4:30 on a Monday. There's no way we can get through 4 or 5 more witnesses in even an hour.
The court wanting to stop at 5 or a little later.
No, I'm happy to do whatever you guys want to do. I know witnesses have schedules outside this, and nor do I want to put them out more than we have to. So I'll certainly accommodate you guys. I just keeping them past 5:30. What we've done, we've kept them till 5:30. I think that's probably their expectation at this point. To keep them past that, I think would be asking a lot of them, knowing the work they have left ahead of them.
Yes, sir. And I mean, looking ahead, I agree with the court. We think we can get almost, I know we have a long tape to play. I know we got an agreement on the transcript, so that's a non-issue now. That'll churn out a couple hours tomorrow. I do know that we intend on making the 2 Williams rule witnesses brief. The SS has already testified, so we'll be going straight to that. We have a custodian tomorrow.
Do you have the other Williams rule witness?
We have both.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then you have the brother.
The brother, he's here. I told him he's here from New York. He's present.
I just don't see how we because in my mind and working backwards, and this may work for your schedules too, to plan appropriately if we get to phase 2. If closings don't start by Wednesday morning, assuming the jury reaches a verdict Wednesday afternoon, because even if you guys do closing starting, the jury's not gonna get the case till early to mid-afternoon, even with the lunch break.
Yes, sir.
So take that into account. Assuming they get a verdict Wednesday afternoon, then you have Thursday for penalty phase evidence on both sides, openings and evidence, through Friday morning closings for penalty phase. There's no room for error to push anything back. Therefore, it may be inevitable that the penalty phase goes into Monday and Tuesday. And if that's the case, maybe you have a Friday off, and I'll give the jury a Friday off. It may be a good idea for me to give them a heads up sooner rather than later so they can make appropriate plans. I don't think going past Tuesday of next week would be a problem. I think by then, having the Friday buffer of this week may help us, and I may be wrong on that timeline, and if I'm wrong, I'd be happy to admit so.
The court does appear very wise about the scheduling, and for
Thank you.
telling them that 3rd week we may bleed.
I'm
Because I
gonna-
concur with the court, we may bleed to the 3rd week, but I'll tell the court we intend on being prepared for penalty phase openings. We know who they're calling. If this is obviously if we get there, and I'll be prepared for argument. Mr. French and I'll be prepared to do all of that in the same day. The court may not want to deliberate. If we knock all that out one day, the state believes we can, and the counsel and the defense thinks we can, in terms of just the evidence and the opening, potentially even closing. But I'm at the court's pleasure. If the court wants to go ahead and tell them now, we might bleed to Monday. That the state's not objecting. The court has been very patient with us, so we appreciate that. So whatever the court decides to tell them, or whether they come back next week is fine with the state.
Mr. Davis, Mr. Michelle, do you guys have any wise words?
Yeah, I would just add, Judge, that we would agree that we will leave all of the penalty phase
I'm switching to Gary Savage short.
All right. Yeah, so with that in mind, I do think that that's just one day.
Is that just from the defense perspective, or you think the defense and prosecution penalty phase?
Both with what we understand, they will present because it's mostly factual, judge, we can do all of that, and, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we believe that's everybody per penalty phase.
And that's why I'm thinking, what I don't want to do is start penalty phase Friday morning and then have the weekend and then close on Monday. I don't think that's fair to the jury either. And nor is it fair to the evidence you're presenting on both sides to have to sit over that on the weekend. That's why I'm saying maybe Friday's a buffer, give you guys a chance to, recalibrate.
I just don't think it's likely it would take that long, but.
The issue is if we don't start closings on the guilt phase by Wednesday morning, everything gets pushed back at least half a day at minimum. And I don't see how. The last thing I want to do is charge a jury at 4 o'clock on a Friday on penalty phase.
State, yes, sir.
It's I want to avoid that at all costs. If that means Friday's an off day, because we finish the guilt phase, assuming we get to that point, and then we start on Monday, that's just what we have to do at that point.
Your Honor, I would tell the court on the penalty phase, of their 8 of 10, or really 9 of 10 witnesses, it's largely character, and I know this is a big if we get there, but our crosses are not, we're not going to be spending a lot of time on crosses of character witnesses. So in terms of just letting the court know scheduling, the doctor, Dr. Rohr, we would certainly cross, but other than that, if we do cross it, it won't be lengthy.
Okay.
I concur with counsel, and I think we can knock out all the evidence in the opening and closings in one day in penalty. I do concur with that, but again, on that, whatever direction the court.
So would it be fair to say that we'll have a much better idea of this by tomorrow afternoon?
Yes.
Okay, so what I may tell the jury at the end of today is saying, look, here's the plan. We'll know more tomorrow afternoon. We will certainly update you accordingly. And there are basically two options. We finish this week, or we maybe have an off, depending on what happens, start the second phase next week. But everyone agrees it would not go past Tuesday of next week. And then we'll have a better idea tomorrow, because if we can't start closing Wednesday morning, we're going to know that tomorrow afternoon.
Right.
Okay.
And if the court wants that, we know the video's long, or the audio's long on the wire. If we get to that afternoon, it's 3, 4 o'clock, and the court doesn't want to run it straight for 2 hours, taking us to 6. We have no objection if we they can hear half and come back Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
However you want to do it.
Well, no, we'll see. We'll have to take some of those issues one at a time, depending on how much we get done today, how many witnesses, and what you want to start off with tomorrow. Because at the end of today, I'll ask you what's on tap for tomorrow, and we'll have an idea at that point. I'm asking now just so I can let the jury know so they can make appropriate plans.
We're intending on telling them that the parties have agreed to no sequestration, so put them at ease on.
I'm going to let them know that as well at the end of today, yes. I had something else I wanted to ask, but I can't recall it right now.
Jury instructions?
No.
Williams rule with instruction for that. We intend on having both of the witnesses here tomorrow.
Okay. We'll deal with that later then. That wasn't it either, but it obviously wasn't that important. So, nonetheless, I want to give you guys a break, of course, so I'll take 15 minutes. We'll come back out.
Yes, sir.
Michelle, that's what you call silence.
Well, let's go back on the record. 19 CF 7518. I have counsel of the state and defense president, and Mr. Quiles is making his way out now. I remember when I wanted to talk about before the last break, it was regarding the victim impact testimony. If we get that far, I know there's an order from Judge Corbula to have the state provide that to the defense ahead of time. I don't know whether that's been accomplished or not. It's just something that crossed my mind, and that may need to be taken care of sooner rather than later. If we get that far, I just don't want it to be a rush from the defense perspective. They have to review it, lodge any objection they deem necessary, then have to delay things. So just something I thought about and wanted to bring to your attention.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
State, any reason why we can't bring the jury in?
Yeah, he's not ready to address it.
Yes, sir. You're right. I apologize.
Sorry.
State, ready?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
All right, so both parties are ready. Let's bring the jury back in, please.
Your Honor, the jury re-enters the court.
All right, everyone can have a seat. Members of the jury, welcome back. We're going to continue with Mr. Lindros, our witness. Just to recap, the state finished their direct, and so I'll turn to the defense for their cross. Ms. Michelle, you may inquire at your ready.
Good afternoon, Mr. Lindros.
Hello, ma'am.
All right, let's start kind of back at the beginning of your testimony. Mr. Quiles was hired in October of 2018, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So at that time, when this incident occurred, he'd been working for you all for about 2 months. Does that sound about right, in December of 2018?
About, 2 to 3 months, yes, ma'am.
And in his role, you described him as generally a good worker, and that he completed his tasks and things along those lines.
Yes, his work record was exemplary, yes.
So you guys never had any issues, were very satisfied with his work, type of worker that he was.
Yes, ma'am, every job got done well.
As far as the type of employee that he was he one that would typically kind of go above and beyond what was asked of him?
Yes, he was never standing around not looking for work to do. He was always trying to find some job to fulfill.
And so if he were around the property and saw something that needed to be repaired, would he just go ahead and do those things?
I imagine he'd bring it to some manager's attention. He wouldn't just fix it, but he'd point out something was in error that needed correction.
And that might be something that he just notices on his own, around the property, or things along those lines?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you recall a map being provided to your brother or to yourself that talked about some repairs that needed to be made in the exterior fence of your property?
I didn't see the map. I've heard about the map, and I'm familiar with the topic.
Okay. And so what I was just asking you, if he noticed that some things needed to be repaired, like you just said, he would bring that to someone's attention and then potentially repair those things, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So that would be very normal for him to do with the type of employee that he was.
It would not be out of place now.
And that would have been something within his normal duties as well, to fix holes in the fence or things that need to be repaired.
Yes, he did general repair, yes, ma'am.
I want to talk to you about the 19th specifically. Let's start there.
Yes, ma'am.
On December 19th, we went through a lot of video and went through some clips. I want to just address one thing right off the bat. There is a discrepancy in the time stamps, essentially, correct?
Yes, there is, ma'am. The two dates have a different time schedule as far as I can tell as well.
Right, so on the 19th, based on what you see, you believe that that's a 4-hour time difference on the 19th.
Yes, ma'am. I'm setting that basis by when we open the gates. We open the same time every day, especially these were both weekdays. So the time should be consistent. As I saw us opening the gates, that should track with about the time we open both days.
And so then on the 20th, you believe it was a 5-hour time difference, again, based off of what time period you typically would open the gates.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's what you're basing that time period on, more so than the timestamp itself.
Correct.
Okay. And so you're not certain 100% because you didn't open on the 19th, correct?
That's correct. I did not open on the 19th.
Okay, but just generally based on when you would open, that's the time period, and the time period you figured that your brother would open as well.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I want to ask you a little bit about that time period that we see Mr. Quiles get into his vehicle and what appears to be him driving across the train tracks, which would be to leave the property.
On the 19th?
On the 19th.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
When you see that time period when he's gone, again, we're not certain that that's 4 hours earlier, but approximately it would either be 11:15 if it was 5, then it would be about 10:15. I believe it's actually 11:17 and 10:17. Is that fair to say?
Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah, sorry, I kind of convoluted that a little bit, so I apologize. On that date, the
Yes.
timestamp we're seeing when he's leaving that property, we had estimated it that it was around 11:17 a.m., correct?
Yes, ma'am.
If for some reason that timestamp actually was 5 hours, then it would be more like 10:17 a.m., correct?
12 is that?
Or would it be later, the way you've got it marked back?
I'd have to review the timestamp again.
All right, and I'll pull it back up, that way we can do that. But we'll get back to that. Let me circle back to that a little bit later. When Mr. Quiles was seen leaving that property, you don't know where he went exactly, correct?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay. I asked your brother this question, so I'm going to ask you as well. Were you aware that if, for example, there needed to be a part picked up or some errand run for business purposes, would that be something that Johnathan Quiles potentially would be asked to do?
No, not that I can imagine, ma'am. With both my brother and I present, one of us would have typically gone to pick up any type of part or component. That would be standard procedure for us.
Okay. And would there be any time when you would utilize Mr. Quiles in that way if for some reason you were tied up and your brother was tied up?
I don't foresee one, ma'am.
Okay. As far as the date in question from the 19th, I know that we were viewing on that video several there's a lot of clips, back to back.
Yes, ma'am.
As far as the timestamps on there, that's not the same way your timestamps are shown on your video camera system that you would view in the office, correct?
No, ma'am. It didn't appear to be the same format, no.
Okay. And so those timestamps that you kind of went through with the state during direct, that's not as accurate to your memory as what it looked like on your camera system, correct?
Correct.
Right, and so you said that your camera system basically is placed in areas to essentially or primarily to prevent theft or to at least find out information if there was a theft, correct?
Yes, or to see people coming in and out of the facility, yes.
And yes, you said that basically your facility is a one-way in, one-way out type of facility, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And your cameras primarily focus on that kind of one-way in, one-way out at different angles.
Yes.
There are other angles, though, that show a little bit more of the restricted area where employees work.
Yes.
Okay, and that we see Mr. Quiles working on forklifts and walking around in that area where he'd be primarily performing his duties.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You made a comment that I wanted to just kind of circle back to, that on the one camera angle that we saw where you can see that 40-yard dumpster, you can kind of see the very last little sliver of that, correct, on that video, but you can't see the full thing.
Yes, ma'am.
you made a comment that you believe that that's cut off in some way.
Well, I think they zoomed in, it appears that it was zoomed in to get a better view of the center of the picture. But I believe, my understanding, at least from seeing this video for years, is that it is slightly larger, but that might shrink the picture where it'd be harder to see, so.
And so you're basing that off of when you're in the office, what you can see on those cameras that are displayed within the office.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's a live feed that you're seeing of that security camera.
Yes, it is.
And so on that live feed, you can actually see more of that 40-yard dumpster than what we're able to see on these videos that we were played today.
I can see more of that camera angle. Whether I can see the dumpster, I'm not certain.
Okay. And when you say you can see more of that camera angle, that you mean to the right and to the left, it would be more expansive on both sides?
Yes, ma'am.
And so if that camera angle that we were viewing picks up the very edge of that 40-yard dumpster, the camera view that you have in your office would actually show a little bit more of that,
I
correct?
believe so, yes, ma'am.
All right, I want to take you to that time period. On the 19th, when Mr. Quiles is working in that area off to the, I guess, when you come in through that main entrance and you go straight, you see him on the 19th go in that area. You stated that you believe it was mostly storage. There were some cars there that maybe were being processed or needed to be processed, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you recall there being a new tire machine in that area as well?
No, I do not.
Okay. And I'm going to show you, give me one. Sorry, I'm trying to get to one particular picture. All right, in this picture, can you see that on your screen there, sir?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Do you see the new tire machine in this photograph?
No, I do not, ma'am.
Okay. In that area that we're looking at right now, this blue fenced area, that blue fence area, that was not there in 2018, correct?
No, there was a different style fence at the time, yes, ma'am.
And so these photographs that we kind of went through where we are seeing that area kind of going into, that if you were to go straight into the property, what that looks like in these photographs that you went through is not how it looked in 2018, correct?
The fence was moved slightly, but it was of a similar location. It was still, it had a slight curve to it that came up a little bit closer to where that open gate is, but it was generally in a similar location.
All right, and as far as what the area back there looked like, is that accurate to how it looked in 2018?
No, there was a large concrete plant at the time, several stories tall, sort of in the front of where that white triangular roof building is located.
Okay. Now, on the 19th, when you see him going into that area, there would be some vehicles there and some other items in that area potentially that he could be working on, correct?
To my knowledge, we were storing vehicles over there. I wasn't aware of any other items that we were actively using, so I'm not sure.
Right, and on one of those video clips, we actually see him carrying like a red vehicle, correct, and bringing it through.
Yes, a Honda Accord, yes, ma'am.
And so that type of vehicle would be in that area that we're discussing.
Yes, ma'am, yes.
So for something like that, he would have a legitimate reason for going in that area for work purposes.
Yes, there's a possibility of that, yes, ma'am.
As it relates to coming back through, and I think the time period on that was like, I believe you said 2.5 minutes when he was in that area. The other potential reason for him being in that area was, you said, to correct or to make sure that the gate was locked or open?
On the 20th, after he'd pulled out of our facility where we didn't see his car for a few minutes, that's the only possible reason I can think of. He wasn't typically charged with that, however, so I can't say that that's why he was there, but if I had to list a possibility, that's the only one that would come to mind.
Understood. As far as where we're going or where he's headed, when he comes back in and he parks in the parking lot area, this is on the 19th, after he returns. When he comes back and he parks, you see him interact with another employee. Do you recall that part of the video?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And they walk back towards what appears to be this same area that we've been discussing, that, you had some storage.
Where they walked was not far from that large opening. It was just to the left. We had looked as if we had loose tires there.
Okay. And so that area that it's not quite on camera, so you can't see them working on those loose tires or anything along those lines, correct?
Correct.
Okay. However, if you're in the office, you
Oh,
describe...
wait, ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt. We saw the picture of them standing in front of those tires. So there was video of them in front of those tires.
You're talking about later when they come into the main yard area.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Where they're coming from, though, is that direction of the area where you had the storage, is what I was asking.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that part you can't see where they're coming from.
No, ma'am.
Okay, but it's both of them coming from that area.
Yes.
And so, again, there probably was some legitimate work-related reason why the both of them would be in that area that you said was for storage.
I can't think of one, but
And is it safe to say that as you sit here today, that's 4.5 years ago, and so you may not be remembering everything that could have possibly been in that area that people might be working on?
that's true, ma'am, yes.
Going into the 20th, we watched, and we kind of fast-forwarded through some of it, we watched Mr. Quiles around the property, traversing here and there, talking with people working, doing normal activities. Is that correct?
Yes.
And everything that you observed on that video, in the clips of those videos, nothing out of the ordinary was happening based on what you're seeing.
I wasn't directly in charge of his workflow. I found the switching of the forks with the bucket on the loader to be confusing to me. I didn't understand the purpose of it. There could have been one, I'm not aware of it. That struck me as odd.
Okay. And like you said, there may be a legitimate reason you
Yes.
weren't out there and you weren't supervising him directly in that time.
Correct.
And you never really did, right? You were
No.
more so office related.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As it relates to what you do know about his work duties, in that area where the storage was, did you guys also have gravel or stone, kind of sand type of area, sand materials that were being kept in that area as well?
I don't recall it, but that's very possible. We frequently have had aggregate material there to fill holes in the yard, yes.
And I was just going to ask you that. Was part of his duties to fill holes in the yard that may have been there with those type of materials that you might have in that area?
Yes, I believe, yeah, that would fall into his.
So like on a rainy day, if there were ruts and things being made because of trucks coming through, would one of his responsibilities be to fill those out?
I could see that happening, yes.
So would that be one explanation for why he's switching between the forklift and the bucket version of that?
Yes.
Now I want to talk to you a little bit about the things that we see him doing on the 20th specifically. We see him come in and out of the office throughout the day. Was that normal?
Yes, it would be. If he had finished a task or was about to undertake another task, he would probably clear it with my brother, yes.
Okay, so he would come in to check in with him periodically to get new jobs if there was nothing else going on.
Yes.
And you see him doing that several times on those videos, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
At one point, you see him walk out with what appears to be some tape, some duct tape.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you imagine a completely normal work purpose for having tape?
Yes, I imagine something could be ripped or broken that he was attempting to repair or secure it. It's very possible, yes.
And then I believe you also said, as it relates to him, I think he had some like clothing items that appeared to be like a rain jacket of sorts that he was carrying out at the office. At another occasion, he came in to check in.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, that was something that you did not find abnormal whatsoever.
No, not at all.
And I believe what you said was that it could have just been as simple as, hey, employee X doesn't have a raincoat today, I'm grabbing this for him or her.
Yes, yes, that would be a very common thing to occur.
And I want to ask you a little bit about kind of the process. And I know you do more inside, but you're aware of what's happening outside as well.
Yes, ma'am.
The production process and all of that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. As far as the production process goes, we heard already from your brother that essentially there's kind of like two-man teams and in different areas of the production process. Is that right?
Yes, yes, that's correct.
And from time to time, Mr. Quiles would be assigned to a type of production team where he would be working with another individual, correct?
Wouldn't be uncommon for him to fill in several different positions. He's very talented, yes.
And as far as that particular date, we see him, there's one date where we see him with another individual. That wouldn't be abnormal whatsoever, him working with another employee on some project or a duty.
No, especially with our two-man process, it would be common.
And then I want to ask you about that vehicle that we saw him carrying, that red vehicle that we saw him carrying. If he was bringing that vehicle to be processed, eventually that vehicle is going to end up out in the main customer area, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when he brings that vehicle, he's not also processing that vehicle, correct?
No, he isn't.
So when he drops that vehicle off, someone else is emptying out that vehicle of any garbage or trash or whatever the contents of the inside of that vehicle are, correct?
Yes, ma'am, yes. He wouldn't be moving and processing it. That would be odd.
So there are different production teams of people who would have received that vehicle and been doing various things on it. We heard some of that from your brother as far as removing the battery or, emptying the fluids and all of that.
Yes, ma'am.
And again, that would not be anything out of the ordinary. That would be normal duties that he had during that time period.
Correct.
As far as what you typically see inside vehicles at your property that come through, you guys get the gamut, right? A range of things from fatal car crash vehicles to vehicles people have been living in, just regular vehicles people are getting rid of. All of that, those are type of vehicles that you might receive through your facility.
Yes, ma'am. I could write a book, yes.
Okay. And so having clothing items and all sorts of things, if someone was living in that vehicle, that would not be abnormal whatsoever.
Common, yes.
And everything that you guys remove from those vehicles gets dumped into dumpsters, one of those two dumpsters that we see on video here.
Yeah, usually there's only one there at a time. The only time there's two is when they're doing the actual swap.
So all of that eventually ends up in that 40-yard dumpster.
Yes, ma'am.
Just 1 second for me. All right, let me ask you about that dumpster being moved or being replaced with an empty one and them taking the full one. That's typically a job that your brother would do to call for that pickup of that dumpster, correct?
Yes, ma'am. The people who are emptying out the cars would say, hey, the dumpster is full or just about full. We need to have it swapped out. And then my brother, and he's pretty much the only person that calls. If I had a call, I'd have to call him for the number. And so he calls and he gets the swap out done.
Okay. In that video, we actually saw on the 20th, the American Garbage truck driver coming in. And in that video, we saw him kind of stop.
Yes.
And it looked like he was almost about to pass the turn to come into where that dumpster is, correct?
That's what it appeared to me as well, yes.
And you stated during direct that that wasn't abnormal because there often would be different drivers, not like the same driver came all the time.
Correct.
And so when you see him stop and he kind of sitting there for a minute or so, someone would normally be in charge of kind of, hey, this is where you need to go, this is where the dumpster is.
Yes.
Okay, so when you see the forklift come with whom we believe is Mr. Quiles inside and get out and kind of speak to him and then actually go back towards that area to direct him, that was completely normal.
It wasn't out of the ordinary, but it wasn't common either. Usually someone from the office would actually stick their head out of the door and direct them on. Mr. Quiles happened to, I guess, be nearby at that time to do so, but that's why we, usually it's just someone from the office opening the door and pointing them in the direction.
Actually, since you said that, I'm just going to take you to part of that video. And this is December 20th. You were shown these videos a little earlier. I'm going to take you to about 53:27, if I can get closer. It looks like I'm at 53:26. I'm sorry. I'm taking you to a part of this video that you were shown earlier. This is from December 20th, and I'm taking you to approximately 53:26 on that video.
Yes,
Do you
ma'am.
see that here on your screen?
Yes, I do.
I'll try to elevate my voice a little bit so you can hear me while I'm talking over here. This individual that's coming out from out of the office, is that an employee of the office there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I just want to kind of look, I'm sorry, I actually kind of went too far, I apologize. Okay, I'm going to take you back to 52:52 of that same video, just back it up a little bit because I think I went too far. And that employee that I was just asking about, I believe we'll see him actually come out at this point in time. And was he coming out based on what we just discussed in order to try to assist in directing?
Yeah, typically that would be the case. That driver stopped fairly far back. Usually they would come up about right to that point, just in the gate, and then they'd be looking around and confused. And then, but usually, we'll have someone from the office just direct them over.
And that's what we see him doing there, pointing towards the right area to go,
Yeah, and
correct?
that's very common and typical for this situation.
And as you said, we saw Mr. Quiles kind of working towards that area or driving that forklift in that area at the time. And so was he, just based off what you could see, assisting in getting that gentleman back to the right area for the dumpster?
That's what it appears, yes, ma'am.
All right, let me ask you about following, I believe, some action that occurred afterwards. You were present during some canine search, or I think you said that there were police dogs that came out, I think that's the word you used, to search Ace Pick Apart, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were there, I believe it was on December 30th. Does that sound about right?
It could be, yes.
When they came out to do that search, did you walk around with them and kind of direct them around the area of where, areas of interest?
No, I stayed up in the offices, and they went through the yard for, I don't recall exactly, but it was somewhere on the order of 4 to 5 hours in our facility.
Okay. And while they were there, you were just basically present. You weren't walking or doing anything along with them?
No, they were there several hours after we closed, so I was just me waiting for them, so yes.
Understood. You talked about them removing a vehicle from that area that you used for storage, correct?
Yes, ma'am, Mercury Grand Marquis, I believe it was, yeah.
Okay. And that vehicle that they removed, you stated that you thought it was kind of odd that they would be removing that vehicle as a vehicle of interest.
Yes, we'd gotten the vehicle within about the week prior, so it seemed to me like it was a newer vehicle, and we had already heard the news story and who they were looking for. So it seems to be some time after that event. So it seemed odd that they were pulling this car that we had gotten from a tow company, which already stores it at a different facility for 60 days before we ever even see it. So the fact that the chain of custody had it at this tow company and then our facility at the times didn't seem to make sense to me.
All right. So that vehicle, as far as you could tell, even though they seemed interested in it, and that you're not certain that that's the vehicle that they got a police dog hit on, though, correct?
They said there was some interest in it, is all the officer said at the time.
And this was the day that they had canines out there?
Yes.
Searching, okay. But that giving some sort of hit or anything like that, you knew that at that time that couldn't have been related to this case, correct?
I couldn't imagine how it would be, yes.
Okay. And is that because you believe that vehicle arrived there sometime after this time period that they told you potentially?
Yeah, it had arrived within a week or less of when they were coming out to search.
Understood. All right, as far as what your observations were of Mr. Quiles over that 19th and 20th day, you never saw anything from his behavior that seemed suspicious to you, did you?
I did not interact with him much either way to say.
Okay. When someone comes into the office, would you be able to see them or not really?
Yes, yeah, we have a small office. I would see someone walking in or out, yes.
Okay, and would that be meaning that you would just see them in passing, but maybe not necessarily interact with them?
Yes.
Okay. And so did you recall having seen him come into the office throughout those days?
I don't specifically recall those dates, but it was very common for him to go in and out of the offices for, different tasks or supplies, so it would be commonplace. It wouldn't stand out.
Understood. And that was my next question. You don't recall anything out of the ordinary from those 2 days happening?
No, ma'am.
As far as your review of video, on direct you talked about you don't review video unless there's an incident that occurred. Incident-based review is kind of what you said.
Or, yes, some reason or trigger to do so, yes.
Otherwise, you're not really looking through the video on a regular basis, not in the morning, you don't go back and look through the night like you said.
Not typically, no, ma'am.
In this particular case, though, something was alleged to have happened on your property, correct?
Yes.
And so you did, in fact, review some of that video, correct?
No, ma'am. I wasn't aware of anything actually occurring on our property in the first place, so I didn't review it. When the police came out to ask me for the video, we were unable to extract it from our system, so we gave them components of the system so that they could extract them themselves.
Right, and I just mean you've been provided video to review for your testimony today.
Oh, yes, I've seen video, yes.
Sorry, yeah, and I wasn't clear in my question. So you have reviewed video from that time period?
Yes.
Okay. And in that video, you never saw a young lady that was alleged to have been on your property, correct?
No, ma'am, I did not.
You never saw Mr. Quiles with a young lady on that property?
No, ma'am, I did not.
You never saw Mr. Quiles carrying what appeared to be a body?
No, ma'am, I did not.
You never saw him dumping anything that appeared to be a body or in a bag or anything along those lines into that 40-yard dumpster?
No, ma'am, I saw nothing like that.
As far as someone being on your property overnight, meaning they were there one night on the 19th and still being there overnight until the 20th, in your opinion, how likely would that be?
Unprecedented. There's been a handful of incidents where people have been locked in after closing, and we've come back to let them back out. I've never known of anyone to stay overnight more than an hour or two after closing.
And you never saw anybody on that property in any video that you've reviewed overnight, having been on that property?
No, ma'am, and we have infrared cameras and stuff like that. Even if it was dark, we'd still notice somebody. In the past, when we've had theft issues and we've gone back to check, you can see bodies walking around, and nothing like that was noted.
So nothing from these dates of the 19th or 20th revealed that anybody was on that property overnight?
I did not review all the tapes, all the tapes, because I handed them over to the police, but I would assume that they were looking, so I can't make that assumption, but I would assume that they would have looked.
And after we see Mr. Quiles leave the property around 2:45 on the 20th, you don't ever see him come back on any camera video that you've reviewed?
Not to my knowledge, no, ma'am.
And same on the 19th. When he leaves for the evening, I believe you said it was around 6 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am.
You never see him return on any video that you've reviewed?
Not that I'm aware of, ma'am.
Not until the following morning when he comes back to work?
Yes.
Otherwise, he's not there on that property. You don't see him doing anything on that property?
No, ma'am. No, and employees are not supposed to be there. We don't permit it. It would be, even as an exception, it wouldn't happen.
Understood. Give me one moment, please. And just to kind of pin that and finish here, you locked up that night, correct, on the 20th?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And someone else locked up if it wasn't you on the 19th as well?
Correct, yes.
And it's you, your brother, your dad, and maybe one other office manager employee who have keys to access that property after hours?
To access it at all, yes.
To access it at all?
Yes, ma'am.
And so there's no way anybody else could have gotten into that property after it's locked up or anything along those lines?
No, ma'am.
And you were the one that opens the property, or your brother?
Yes.
Opens the property in those 2 days that are in question?
8 days a week, yes, ma'am.
I don't have anything further.
Just briefly, Your Honor, thank you. council brought up the fact that the processing of the vehicles, where there are employees when that is happening. Did the processing of the vehicles happen up your front, closer to the office, or further back, sir? At that time?
I guess you'd say towards the back.
Now, with respect to that day, on December 19th, did you come in yourself the next morning on December 20th and watch the video from the whole night prior? You didn't do that.
No, I did not, no. There was no reason for us to, yeah,
There was no need to, correct?
correct.
And then on the 20th, you didn't come in on the 21st and watch the video from the night prior either, did you?
No, ma'am, no, sir, I did not.
Just turn all that over to the board.
Yes.
All right. And of the 11 or so cameras that you articulated on direct examination and across, those 11 cameras capture what they capture, correct?
Yes,
And you do agree there's areas on the property that are not captured on the camera?
several, yes, sir.
What about just outside the fence line, all the way around these 30-plus acres on the backside and the sides? Are there cameras over there?
No, there are not. We have an 8-foot-high solid metal fence. It's surrounded by electrical fencing on the inside of that. That goes up to, I believe, about 9 feet. It's quite formidable as a barrier.
But you have no idea what's going on outside your property, either with your eyes or cameras, or really any information comes your way in that regard, correct?
No, sir, I don't.
You don't know what's going on throughout the night, just outside the border of your property, correct?
No, sir, there's Interstate 95 behind our border. There's a lake. I mean, no, I don't know what's going on.
Just outside your fence, on
Okay.
the fence line. You don't know, right?
No, sir.
Nothing further. Thank you, Ron.
Sir, good to meet you, and good to see you and your brother. Hope you guys are doing well, and you're dismissed.
Thank you very much, sir.
State, you can call your next witness.
You're on the state with next call Anthony Nitch.
Good afternoon, sir. Just walk over here to your right, have a seat. Please watch your step. If you need a glass of water, let us know. We'll do our best to accommodate you. I only ask if there's an objection made, just please pause, let me rule on the objection, and we'll go from there, okay? And that microphone is adjustable to help you project your voice. Now, with that said, state your main inquiry. You're ready.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please introduce yourself to the jury.
My name is Michael Knitch,
And can you please spell your last name?
Knecht.
And Mr. Knitch, could you please tell us what you do for a living?
I work for Verizon Wireless.
And what's your current title?
In this capacity, I'm a custodian of records with executive relations.
And what are the duties and responsibilities as a custodian of records in executive relations?
I respond to subpoena requests to validate that records that were given to an agency are complete and accurate as the records that they received.
And do those records include Verizon Wireless customers?
They do.
And just to be clear for record purposes, Verizon Wireless is a cell phone company amongst a couple of other brands.
That is correct.
And does Verizon generate a call cell usage reports for any calls made by its customers?
That is correct.
And are these records kept in the ordinary course of business with Verizon Wireless?
That is correct.
Now, is it also possible for law enforcement to obtain records that Verizon normally keeps as part of their ordinary business?
That is correct.
And could that be by search warrant or even a subpoena?
That is correct.
Would just depend on the nature of the actual documents that is being requested?
Yes.
And what sort of information can be provided to law enforcement in these documents?
Cell data, location data, text message, picture messages, IP addresses related to data sessions, any way that a cellular telephone can reach out to a network and make a data connection.
And how long have you been working now for Verizon?
January 7th, 2007.
So quite some time now.
Yes.
And how is information actually generated for these records to be produced?
You have to have a subscriber, and that subscriber has to have a cell phone that's registered on the network. And when they use the service, whether it be an internet session, a text message, a voice call, it authenticates with our network in order to go through, and then any type of usage is validated for billing purposes.
Now, what is a cell tower?
A cell tower is a communication point from which data is streamlined from, streamed to.
So let me just give you, for example, if I'm here making a phone call and I'm close to one of Verizon's towers, how does that tower know that I am close in order to take my signal from my cell phone?
Through network management practices, it could be the closest or the most available cell tower available for capacity.
Now, Mr. Knitsch, what if I am driving and I'm using my cell phone?
It would switch over to the next available cell tower. If you were driving, like say down a street, then it could switch as the cell towers progressed as you travel.
Now, what if I were to turn my cell phone off? Does that affect potential data going to these towers in the database?
Yes, if the cell phone's cut off, no data, no transmission would be sent or received.
Now, is it possible for an individual to be observed on his or her cell phone, but yet Verizon has no record of that particular call, text, message, etc.?
Yes.
Could you tell us how that could happen?
That breaks down to applications on the phone. So if you use Wi-Fi, place your phone in airplane mode, enable Wi-Fi apps, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, all these other different applications will use the available network. It doesn't matter that it's Verizon Wireless.
And so let's just say, for example purposes, I have a Facebook account. Could I use my Facebook account in airplane mode?
That is correct.
And if I am using my Facebook account and my phone is in airplane mode, could I make a phone call within that application if I've downloaded it to my phone?
That is correct.
And so if I make a phone call, let's just say to you, Mr. Knitsch, and I am in that airplane mode in my Facebook account, Verizon Wireless records then would not articulate that, would not even show that it existed.
We would have no record of anything because it wasn't attached to our network.
Now, Mr. Knitsch, in the case here today involving State versus Johnathan Quiles, were you asked to review records associated with 904-293-5139?
I was.
And because this has been about 5 years ago, did the state of Florida, have to provide you a copy what initially was given to Detective Abbott in this case?
That is correct.
And were you able to verify that those documents appear to be consistent with documents that would be in the ordinary course of business of Verizon Wireless?
That is correct, yes.
Now, Mr. Knitsch, I'm going to be showing you what's been marked as States 27. Can you see something on your screen, sir?
Yes, I can.
And does States Evidence 27 appear to be familiar to you?
It does.
And are these the records that's associated with that number that I just stated, the 904-293-5139, that you were asked to review for today's purposes?
It is.
Now, I'll make it bigger here so we can touch upon a few things. So the items that are associated with a PDF, are those kind of information, instructional purposes for a person to understand Verizon's records?
That is correct.
And just let's start, for example, here with the subscriber information. I'll go ahead and click on it. And does subscriber information appear to be a part of the record here?
That is correct.
And who is that person?
Last name Ware, first name Nancy.
And is that person out of Columbus, Georgia?
That is correct.
And when we say subscriber information, does that just mean that that's the owner of this number and this account with Verizon?
That is correct.
So next I'm going to direct your attention to cell site incoming and outgoing. And does that just mean that this is a generation involving incoming and outgoing phone calls?
It's a record of calls that transpired over our network.
And I believe I will get some more numbers here for us. Give me 1 second, sir. I'm just double clicking on a few of the categories here. Now under F, when we see a number, would that be in seconds, minutes, hours, or duration time?
Seconds.
Seconds, yes, sir. Now, in regards to the mobile directory number, can you tell us about that, please, sir?
That's 904-293-5139. That is the Verizon Wireless Mobile Directory number.
Now, also too, in looking at column C, there's a way that we can format that, correct? Where it's a little bit more understandable?
That is correct.
And would I then right-click, go to Format Cells, go to Custom, go to 0, and hit OK?
Correct.
And then we see something quite different. Could you please tell us what we are looking at? Because it appears to be the same set of numbers, sir, under column C.
It is. It displays 1191904-293-5139. The first digits are the routing for voicemail that Verizon Wireless has used to allow voicemail transactions to transpire.
And then, and I'll get back to that in just a moment, sir, a little bit more information, but in column E, would that be the accurate time, or would that be involving a UTC time?
That would be the subscriber's actual location.
So if we see 12/19/2018, 16:40, is that fair to say that it would be then 4:40 p.m. if that, since Columbus, Georgia is in the Eastern time zone?
That is correct.
Or would that be associated with the Jacksonville 2 under A for the time zone, which I know Georgia and Florida are the same time zone?
Correct. It would be based off of Jacksonville and the subscriber's location.
Thank you, sir, for that clarification. So, and going back to column C, where we see the same phone number that's associated with this information, but like you were saying just a moment, Mr. Knitch, that we have a 119. I believe you stated that's associated with a voicemail?
That is correct.
So does that mean that the voicemail is being generated by Verizon Network?
This record is showing in section D a forwarding indicator, which means the call never actually rang to a phone and went straight to the voicemail platform.
Okay, so just in plain simple terms, 119 indicates that it's a voicemail that did not go through, therefore there's an in-house response.
That is correct. And if you go to the other columns, G, H, I, J, all being 0, that's another indication to show that it never ended up on a cell tower to locate this cell phone. The phone was unavailable, turned off.
Thank you, sir. Next, I'm going to direct your attention to the text message detail, which is here at the bottom. I'm going to do the same in regards to getting our spacing so we can understand these numbers better. And I am just right-clicking in between the columns for record purposes. I think that's okay. So, in regards to now the text message details, we can see that, so let's start at the top so we can understand. What does the MDN stand for?
The mobile directory number.
All right. And then I'm going to draw your attention to the message. It appears we can see an MO and an MT. Can we please just start with the MO and what that means, sir?
MO is mobile origination, so that means the cell phone would have originated our subscriber, the 904-293-5139, would have placed the text message outbound.
And let's get to that to clarify that a little bit more. Based upon the fact, let's talk about row 2 here, where we see the destination address. Is that a 9.0008E plus 11? Is that what it states, sir?
It does.
Now, because that is not an actual phone number, does that mean then that MO was generated in-house by Verizon?
That is correct.
And is Verizon trying to notify the user of 904-293-5139, hello, you have messages waiting for you?
That is what that number means. There's quite a few different messages Verizon would send out, but one of those messages would be trying to ping back to the phone.
And so is it fair to say, for example, and we'll go, I believe there's 6 total, start with column 4, that on column 4, we actually see another phone number in the destination address. It's 904-450-0955. When there is a phone number involved in G and H, is it fair to say that that message actually went through?
That is correct.
And I believe that says 9:08 a.m. Would that be accurate on 12/19/2018?
That is correct.
And I believe that that would be the last time, let's see, because in column 6, at 9:07 a.m., be fair to say that that was an actual message that also was delivered. It looks like that would have originated from 904-293-5139. The actual subscriber of this number would have sent a message at 9:07 a.m. and it was received. Is that fair to say? On
That is
line
correct.
6.
Yes, that is correct.
And it appears, if we go down again to line 11, did the 904-450-0955 send a message at 8:26 a.m. and it was in fact received?
That is correct.
So that's, and then again on line 16, we have a 9:07 a.m. message where it commenced. Yep, you can draw. Yep, no problem. It's making it easier, huh, with instead of staring at a bunch of numbers, right, Mr. Knitch?
Yes, it does.
And it appears that the 904-450-0955 is sent a message again to the subscriber of these records. Is that, and it was actually received?
That is correct.
I believe we've discussed 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's keep going down. Here, I'll get with your red too. A little bit off. Then in column 29, is it fair to say that this message went through at 8:55 a.m. and it was sent by 904-450-0955 and 904-293-5139 our subscriber actually received that message.
That is correct.
I believe there's one more. That's, yep, no, two more. Going down, so yes, two more. And there was one at 8:43 a.m. in column 33, where, again, the 904-450-0955 sent a message to our subscriber of these records, and it was actually received. Is that fair to say?
That is correct.
And then our last verified communication, would that have been, and obviously it would be earlier on from the other records, would that have been at 8:26 a.m. in column 41, and that would have been sent by the actual subscriber to that same phone number that we've been indicating, the 450-0955.
That is correct.
So if we go back up to the column 3 at 9:08 a.m., is it fair to say that this was the last human-generated message between these two accounts?
That is correct.
So the other indications that do not have a phone number, those would have been Verizon-generated messages.
That is correct.
And lastly, sir, I'm going to draw your attention to the call logs. Now, in looking at these records, and I'm just going to scan them down just for a moment. You can observe all of them. That's part of this record. Count is 1604 for record purposes. We'll scroll back up. And that bottom date, is that 12/31/2018, Mr. Knitch?
That is correct.
Thank you, sir. Now, going back up, these call log records commence on 12/19/2018.
Repeat the question.
Do these call log records commence on December 19th, 2018?
They end connecting to the device with those top two, correct?
And do our records start on the 12/19/2018 date?
That is correct.
And based upon review of these call log records under this this tab of the Excel, is it fair to say that only 2 calls were actually made and received from one person to another?
That is correct.
And based upon the fact that in column B, with those 2 calls under row 2 and 3 have been respectively at 7:02:34 a.m. and 7:05:18 a.m.
That is correct.
And based upon these records, there is no further phone activity after December 19th, 2018. Is that fair to say?
That is correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello.
So just want to clarify a few things if we could, okay? You testified on direct that these cell sites go by, they basically collect the cell data of the general location of where they are, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, the location is not necessarily determined by exactly where they are, but to be clear, it's kind of like a triangulation of different cell towers, and it's the first available one that has access and availability to pick up the call. Would that be accurate?
There's several factors of why the first cell tower would pick up the call. That would be one of them.
Okay, what are the others?
Proximity, network traffic. So network traffic, if one cell tower is busier than another cell phone tower, it will offload to the next closest. It's still going to keep them in a general proximity, not several miles away, but still within a proximity of the subscriber.
Right, and it's done by a triangulation of towers to determine which one's closest and available. Would that be accurate?
Through network management practices, Verizon has a way of allowing the call to be sent and received.
Okay. Now, you had talked about it's able to track whether or not it's pinging off of a tower or anything like that. And then all of a sudden, if it goes dead, that doesn't mean meaning it's not receiving a signal. That doesn't mean the person necessarily turned it off, the battery could have died, any number of factors could have contributed to that. Would that be accurate?
The phone being powered off, yes.
Okay. You were showing all those phone records. If somebody takes a SIM card out, that will also affect it. Wouldn't that be accurate?
That is correct.
Okay. So they could still be using the same phone and put a new SIM card in it and be on their way, and it would recognize it under something different. Wouldn't that be true?
In theory.
In theory?
I mean, anything is possible with taking and switching SIM cards.
Okay. And so if somebody doesn't want to be tracked, all they got to do is switch out a SIM card, or, for lack of better words, go up to the local store and get a burner phone, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So the fact that the last time that that phone number received a call or sent a call is just indicative of that's the last time that phone received anything, right?
That was the last Verizon wireless record for that subscriber, correct.
Okay. May I have just a second with Council, Judge? Nothing further here.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Sir, good to see you. Have a good rest of your day. Counsel, can I see one representative at sidebar regarding scheduling without the court reporter? Members of the jury, the state of Florida is going to call one more witness. They have assured me that it's a shorter one. I'm not going to say my joke that I said last week.
Believe it should. It should be. It's a custodian. It's a detective.
So the state will call one more witness. Go ahead, state.
Yes, sir, Detective Hector Quintana.
All right. So members of the jury, this will be our last witness. We'll pick up tomorrow morning from there. I do have some information for you at the conclusion of today to give us a timeline of our time together.
Quintana, I'll have him spell it. Quin.
Sir, good afternoon to you. If you need a glass of water, let us know. We'll do our best to accommodate you. If there's an objection made during the course of your testimony, I just ask that you pause, let me rule on the objection, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
That said, Mr. Skinner, floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
You state your name, please,
Sure, Detective H.M. Quintana,
and can you spell your last name?
Quintana.
Yes, sir. What's your occupation, sir?
I'm a detective with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office Computer Forensics Unit,
All right, and how long have you worked in that unit?
going on 8 years.
And what are the general duties of a detective in the computer forensic unit?
We process electronic devices from different units such as homicide, robbery, what have you, when they require that evidence be extracted from digital devices. They bring them to us and we extract the data from those devices in a forensically sound manner. Therefore, none of the data is ever altered before, during, or after our processing.
Yes, sir. How long have you worked in total with JSO, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
Going on 18 years.
And with respect to your current role in CFU, the Computer Forensic Unit, are items of evidence, devices, laptops, phones, computers, assigned to you to extract data from them?
Yes.
Is that done at the direction of either a homicide detective or some other unit's detective?
Yes, they're delivered to a unit by, say, a homicide unit or a robbery unit, and they are assigned to various of us detectives or Anna.
All right. And where's your office located?
We have an off-site office.
All right. And is it secure?
Yes,
Do you do your work there and your extraction of data there?
correct.
And do you use a program in particular with respect to cell phones called Cellbrite?
Yes,
Can you describe that briefly?
sure. Celebrite is a vendor that also, we call the device itself and software Celebrite. And it's software and hardware utilized. Let's say an example, we receive a cell phone. We connect the cell phone to that device, software, hardware, and it forensically extracts the data from that phone to the computer.
All right. Is one of the purposes in extracting that data for preservation, to preserve the data?
Yes, sir, it is.
Were you, in this case, in the state of Florida versus Johnathan Quiles, provided an iPhone 6A1549 attributed to Johnathan Quiles, telephone number 904-568-1617?
Yes,
Did you and/or the team and/or Detective Webb, one of the partners, extract the data from that particular cell phone in this case?
yes,
Did you do the extraction of the data from that particular phone with the program of Cellbrite?
yes,
Did you do this at the request of lead detective Billy Abbott?
yes,
Now, when you extract that data, does it include all data, for example, text messages, call logs, email, any and all data on a phone?
yes,
Is that what's commonly referred to in your world, a cell phone dump?
yes.
All right. Now, when the data is put into extracted by Cellbrite, is it put into a more reader-friendly format? And if so, can you explain that?
Yes, well, the data is extracted from the device. Obviously, if you look at a device, it's a lot of data there. We all have cell phones. So all that raw data is extracted to the computer, and then the software, the Cellbrite software, parses that out. In other words, it puts emails in an email folder, text messages, in a format where you can view quite easily on one screen. And there, if you needed to review the emails or text messages, what have you, it's there on the screen. All you have to do is click on it.
All right. And when it is extracted and put into these files, is that so that the lead detective and/or whatever detective submits it to your unit, it comes back to them in an organized manner so they can read it?
Yes,
All right. And Detective Abbott will be testifying to some of this later. But just for purposes of the extraction, I want to make sure the record's clear and our jury understands. When it's extracted and put into this particular format, is there any way whatsoever, Detective, that this data can be altered, changed, amended, deleted in any way whatsoever during the extraction process?
No, it's not, because the data is received in a read-only format. An example of that is take a phone call. We all make phone calls on a daily basis, and you're speaking to a friend and or loved one, and you put the mute button. So you're still able to hear whatever conversation they're telling you, but any conversation that you may be holding here, they cannot hear. So it's one-way stream. So we utilize, it's called write blockers. So it blocks the data from being overwritten. So we only pull that data rawly, and it's prevented from anyone overwriting it.
Okay? So when parcels of data are put into this particular reader format, for example, if you wanted to go review Snapchat messaging, can you do that once you extract the data?
Yes.
Okay, and Detective Abbott will talk about that later. With respect to text messages, if you want to review specific text messages from the device, could a future detective be able to review that later?
Yes.
Once they get it, what kind of format is it in physically? Is it on a disk?
Yeah, we provide either on a disc, DVD, Blu-ray, depending on how large the data is, and we'll put it on there for them.
All right. And in this particular case, did you extract all this data and place it in that format and forward it to Detective Billy?
Yes, it's delivered, hand delivered, yes.
All right. And once you reviewed the data and the extraction process was done and it was transferred, did you verify and make sure that nothing whatsoever had been altered, deleted, amended, anything of that nature with respect to the data that was extracted?
Yes.
One moment, Your Honor. Nothing further. Thank you.
Defense.
Good afternoon, Detective.
Good afternoon, sir.
Just a real quick follow-up. You said you did a, for lack of a better word, cell dump on an iPhone 6, right? Do you recall what the phone number was on that? What the state just read to you?
I'm sorry? Yeah, I don't recall what the number exactly is, yeah.
Okay, all you know is the phone number that he read off to you.
Yes,
Okay, and that was at the request of Detective Abbott, right?
right.
You don't know whose phone number that belongs to, whether it's Johnathan Quiles or somebody else associated with this case?
Well, it will be on the extraction that we provided the detective with. So a lot of times they provide a device owner. It may have the person's name and or email there. So that would be on the actual report that was provided to the detective, and that had not altered or changed.
Okay. But you, other than him handing this to you and asking for a cell phone dump, you don't have any idea whose phone number that is, right? Or whose phone that is?
Well, not without looking at the report.
Okay. And as you stated, you can't alter or modify anything related to it, correct?
Correct.
I mean, these are basically just, cell phones today are nothing more than a mini computer that we use just like every day on a laptop, right?
Yes.
Especially the new iPhones.
Yep.
And the Cellbrite program, as you stated, breaks everything down, compartmentalizes it, so that it's able to, more user-friendly to be able to read it, whether it's the cell phone records or the Snapchat or Facebook or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, if it's on the phone, yes.
Okay. And those can't be modified or altered either, right?
No.
Okay, 1 second. 1 second, Jerome. Just 1 or 2 brief follow-ups. You analyzed that, excuse me, you pulled it off. You did not analyze any of that cell phone data, right?
No, the extraction in this case was they requested a dump of the phone or full download of the phone, and we extracted that data and provided that data for the detectives to review. We have so many cases that we process, we don't have the luxury of analyzing every device, so we download the data, provide that to the lead detective, and they'll go ahead and process it utilizing the Cellbrite reader that was provided to them.
Okay, so you don't have any idea if there's any evidentiary value recovered off of that. All you do is put it onto a disk.
On the cell phone, yes, we extract the data in a forensically sound manner, and we provide that to the lead detective that's processing that case.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
No redirect, thank you, sir.
Detective, good to see you, sir. Have a good rest of your day.
Have a good day.
Members of the jury, given the hour, that will conclude our work together today. A couple of things I wanted to bring to your attention before we break is, if you recall, last week I told you that once deliberations begin, I'm required by law to sequester you until conclusion of those deliberations. The parties have spoken and they have agreed to actually waive that portion under the rules, and so therefore I do not have to sequester you during your deliberations. Remember that only comes into effect if it's late and you guys want to break for the day and come back the next day. Under Florida law, I'm required to sequester you, but the law doesn't allow the parties to waive that requirement. So the parties are in fact waiving that requirement. So I don't have to sequester you. You're allowed to go home and continue deliberations the next day if we reach that point in your deliberations. So I want to let you know that way you're not having to worry about any other issues for planning purposes. Lastly, the schedule moving forward. So we'll have a better idea of that tomorrow afternoon, I think, and the parties agree with that. So a couple different paths we go down. One, the lengthiest path may include Monday and Tuesday of next week. Depends what happens the rest of the week. And that would only be for phase 2. We'll finish the guilt phase of the trial this week, and depending on your verdicts, that may require more work. The last thing I want to do is break up that work over a weekend. I don't think that's beneficial for anybody, but it kind of depends how tomorrow goes as well, and the parties agreed that tomorrow we'll have a better idea of that. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. But everyone agrees that the latest we could see this going is Tuesday of next week. That may even be giving you guys like a Friday off this week, depending on how the testimony goes this week. So I just wanted to let you know that so you guys have as much notice as possible, and we'll have a better idea of that tomorrow. If there's nothing else, you guys have been wonderful. It's really it's inspiring, if you ask me. Democracy in action. So appreciate you guys, your work, your diligence, your paying attention. We'll start again tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Trust you guys to get here on time. And we'll kind of follow the same schedule with the mid-morning break, our lunch break, and mid-afternoon break. And I'm going to get an idea of the attorneys after you leave, what's on tap for tomorrow. And hopefully get out of here at a good hour tomorrow as well. So you guys have a nice evening. Leave your notepads. Please remember the same instructions, the same orders. Please don't discuss the case. Please don't do any independent research. And please avoid the news and all those issues like you have the past week and a half or so. You guys have a nice night. All right, the jury's outside our presence. You guys may have a seat. Okay, so what's on tap for tomorrow, State?
Judge, we'll just pick up from where we anticipated, trying to get to today. We have the FTLE analyst for DNA. We have another computer detective, Short from JSO. We believe we'll have the defendant's ex-wife on the stand tomorrow. And then,
Well, not the New York one. Okay.
no, sir.
Well, that got brought up, and that's why I wanted to clarify. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, not her. And then, moving forward, we have one more phone custodian, but we'll have left to be the lead detective if we ever need to call him, which we do anticipate. The 2 Williams rule, victims, wire. There's one detective that's going to kind of set up how that came about. That should be very brief. And then the witness that has listened to the wire, the inmate, that should be relatively brief. I'm sure they might cross them a little bit longer than we would direct them, and the defendant's brother.
Understood.
That's getting close, Judge. We count, we think we show 12 left at most.
Okay. You just listed off 10, but that goes about what you just said about a give or take a couple, which is fine.
Yes, sir. I believe I could just remember Damian Hatch, that would be the 11th, and I may just be forgetting.
That's not the inmate that you mentioned?
That is not,
previously?
the
Okay.
inmate is George Jackson. Damian Hatch is an inmate, he was the one in federal custody that we have more admissions that we believe he'll be testifying to.
Is that an audio?
No, he'll be here. We had him brought over from federal.
I'm sorry, there's no audio accompanying that testimony.
No, sir, he's gonna testify.
Okay.
The audio is with George Jackson. And then obviously we still have, if we elect to, we're still, we had Kamar Humphrey potentially listed as well, he's available.
Okay.
That would have been 12, so yeah, I think
Okay.
max is that would be 12.
And not saying it can't be done, I think thinking it all tomorrow may be difficult, given the length of the wire, the breaks I'm gonna have to give the jury.
Yeah, looking where we're ending today, Judge, if we got it down to single digits, maybe.
Yeah.
But now with 12 left, again, we may not, the custodian, I mean, everything's in, we may have just some brief questions for the custodian. So there's some short ones in there, but of course the wire is the biggest.
Yeah, and I just didn't want to, it was 5:30, I just couldn't,
We understand, Judge, it's not a problem.
for the jury's sake, it's been a long week and a half for them. In the defense, you still anticipate maybe some defense case outside your client.
I can tell you if they don't call Kamar Humphrey, we intend to.
Okay,
Plus, we're going to have at least 3 others. They won't be long, but there are at least 3 others in addition to Kamar Humphrey.
and that's outside your client potentially testifying if that's what he decides to do.
If he decides.
Okay. I think a safe plan. The last thing I want to do is break up closings. I don't think that's fair to the parties. The best idea may be Thursday, do closing arguments. I think for sure we should be able to finish all the evidence by end of business Wednesday, even with a state rebuttal.
We agree.
They agree.
And I don't know if the state has a rebuttal case, but I would assume we can finish that off in 2 days. Do you anticipate a rebuttal case, based on what you know the defense is doing? And if you don't, that's fine.
It would largely depend on what, if the defendant chooses to testify,
Okay,
that would definitely probably cause us to have a need for rebuttal. Again, we'll have to wait and see on that.
okay. And so I'm just letting you guys know that if closings are Thursday, I would not want to start penalty phase evidence Friday. And you guys think you can do openings, penalty phase evidence, and closings in one day?
Yes.
I would say yes, sir.
Judge, I don't even think it'll take a full day. Really.
Well, then there's the potential that they're getting a case for penalty phase at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock on a Friday. That's,
Evidence Friday and then just argue Monday morning, if the court would prefer that, and then you could argue, instruct, and send them out, of course, this is if needed, but
you know, what I may do is that if we reach that point, what I may tell the jury is, I may tell them, go back, discuss it, give me a consensus, what do you guys want to do? And we'll work at their pleasure at that point. If that's what they want to do, we'll do it. If they decide, no, we'd rather start fresh on Monday, I'll do whatever you guys want me to do whenever the jury wants to do in that regard. I think that's a fair way of doing it. But we'll get more information. I mean, if the jury comes back late Thursday, they may not want to do that. They may want Friday off, which is an understandable position to be in.
if they're deliberating Thursday, how late would the court, they might keep them?
Yeah, so my typical practice is, thinking it through, given the length of the closings, that I would anticipate, given the nature of the case to be and the evidence that has been and will be before the jury. I can't imagine they'll get the case before 2 to 2:30 on a day, if closings are at 9 o'clock, and that includes a lunch break. So an hour and a half, closing, rebuttal. My typical practice is I tell the jury, there's obviously 3 options. We'll be here as late as you want us to be here. we'll order dinner for you, and you will be here late as you want. We can not order dinner because you're close to a resolution, or you can break and come back the next day. Go back, deliberate, tell me what you want to do, and we'll do whatever you want us to do. At that point, I kind of let them drive the train because they're taking their time away to handle the case. So that's my typical practice, and I tell them, look, about 5:30, 6 o'clock, we'll let you know that's what we're doing. I'll probably tell them that before they go out and deliberate. That way they don't think I'm just letting them sit back there. And if you guys have any better ideas, I'm happy to hear them out to see if there's a better solution for it.
The state's fine with the court's approach.
Okay, and you guys can, if you guys have a better idea, something pops, let me know. We can discuss it later.
Yes, sir.
So that's how I'll think of it. But hey, certainly appreciate you guys. We've gone through 28 witnesses in 3 days. I don't think that's a small task. So appreciate what you guys are doing the past few days, past week and a half. And if there's nothing else from the state,
No, sir.
defense. All right, see you guys. Oh, is there a transcript? Do you have a copy?
So what we went ahead and did, Your Honor, we asked our staff today, since we've got the agreement, to make 16 for the jury, 1 for the court, 1 for filing for record purposes, so not for the jury to go back with, but 1 to file for the record. We're going to email a copy to the court reporter and a copy to the defense. And so we'll have the entire courtroom copied in hard copy, so they can, if the court would like, because they can hold it.
Yeah.
We can put it on the screen. I think it's a lot easier sometimes if they just hold their own, but
I think giving them a hard copy is fine. That way they can manipulate it as they deem necessary. When do you plan on calling that tomorrow? I'm simply asking so I know how to plan out the breaks for the jury tomorrow.
yeah, Judge, if we get to that point, 4 o'clock or so, we all know it's lengthy. So if we did that and we saw what time it was, I mean, if we started at 4:30 and the court wanted to stop it like an hour and then finish it Wednesday morning, we're at the court's pleasure on that. But if you want to any later than 4:30 for a 2-hour, that's a long time late in the day to sit and listen to that.
So you don't think it'd be in the morning session?
It will not. I know it will
Okay.
not be in the morning, Judge.
Okay.
I don't mean to cut Mr. Skinner off. I can tell you from reviewing this thing at least twice over the weekend, I know the jury's very engaged, but for as long and drawn out and hard as it is to hear, they may want to start fresh on in the morning.
Understood. It may depend on how, out of this 12 or so, how many have you knocked off before that witness? And there's only, the one thing I'm thinking about too is if you take up Wednesday morning and you rest, let's say Wednesday lunch, if he still has a case, and so I'm thinking of that as well. But if I have a chance to knock off early and let them beat rush hour traffic, trust me, I will do so, because playing that at 4 to 6, I don't think I would do that to the jury.
That's why I want to tell the court, if we get that late in the day and you want to play just an hour, we would not be opposed to that. We understand 2 hours is a long time to sit.
Do you plan on having the witness on the stand while you play it?
We've told him he'll be sitting there, yes, sir.
Okay. So you plan on playing it during direct, and then the defense will have a chance to cross that same witness?
He's been told, yes, sir.
Okay.
He'll be up there a good 4 hours.
Okay. Because your cross is going to be,
It's
okay.
very, very lengthy, almost as lengthy as the lead detective.
Knowing that, Judge, that's.
Maybe closings will be Friday morning.
That changes things a little bit, yes, sir.
Maybe the decision of when the penalty phase begins will be taken out of our hands.
But it's going to be late.
Understood. I wouldn't expect anything less given the evidence at issue. Okay, well, maybe all this talk it's moot if we go to Thursday, Friday anyways, but as you guys know, we have to plan out for the jury's sake. So I appreciate you guys. We'll take that issue as it comes after lunch, see how things are going. Be here, 10 to 9 tomorrow. We'll deal with any issues we need to deal with. I'll come up with the Williams rule instruction tonight. It'll be the standard instruction, and then the Williams rule order talks about what the purposes of that person's testimony will be. What I'll probably say is, for example, since we know SS is being called, her testimony is being utilized for this reason as to count 3, and then this reason as to counts 1 and 2. And the same thing for ID. So that'll be the blank for the standard instruction. We'll talk about it before I announce it to the jury, of course. Anything else from either side before we break for the day?
No, Your Honor.
Defense?
Not related to this thing,
You guys have a nice night.
You too.